All right, what's up, whoever's out there? Glad to have you on. Another week of YouTube Live, another week of social distancing. So hope you guys are staying safe out there. I hope everything's going all right. Figured I'd kind of take a chance to talk a little bit about what trends we think we might see in football on offense, defense, or special teams, or just in the game in general. Just because I think with all this downtime that people have now, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what coaches can come up with and what they're going to try and do. There's kind of been two schools of thought. I think some people think that things might get watered down a little bit because you're not going to have as much time to spend with your team. Schools, place like us in Florida, don't have spring ball now where you'd normally have spring ball. So I think it's a little bit different for us than maybe some other states that usually don't have spring ball. And then the other side of the spectrum and the side that I'm interested in seeing is with all these Zoom clinics going on and everything virtually that's going on right now. I'm interested to see how much people actually go out and learn, and then how much they think they can actually apply to what they have learned, and how much they think they're actually going to be able to get in with their kids and with their team. So I did a YouTube video today on the channel on coaching players, not plays, because I have a feeling that with all this downtime and all the resources that coaches now have with social media to research and study things, and I think people might get a little bit out of hand and try and coach a lot of things that they have learned that they aren't really sure necessarily if they fit or how they fit to their play style or to their kids or to their program. But I think they're going to try and take the things that they learn, and I think they're going to try and put the things that they learn into their program, and hopefully, um, you know, I hope that there's enough people out there that understand that things that you're learning have to fit your program and your staff and your kids, and you have to understand how to teach them. I hope there's not a lot of people out there that think you can just kind of plug and play, um, all these new ideas or new concepts that you're learning out there. So I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, football is a copycat game, and it's a flavor of the month type deal. So obviously you had the Chiefs and the Niners in the Super Bowl. So obviously, what those two teams were doing is going to be probably evident. LSU and Clemson in a national championship game, what they were doing was probably evident. A lot of people, only the true purists in the game of football, or coaches that are really devout into studying the game of football are going to study smaller colleges or smaller level things. Normally, most people are going to gravitate towards the national spotlight. So whatever LSU was doing is going to be popular. Whatever Clemson was doing is going to be popular. What Oklahoma does on offense is going to be popular. And then what the Niners and the Chiefs and maybe the Ravens are doing, I think, is going to be popular. Darius Robinson, what would you tell a first-time coach? Anytime I give advice to people as first-time coaches, do your job, do the job that you're assigned to do it to the best of your ability. Only answer questions that are asked of you. Don't be so blatant to throw your opinion out there of what you think offensive or defensive coordinators, what you think they should be doing or what plays they should be calling. I would tell you that if you're a receiver coach, coach receivers. If they ask you something, give your opinion. If you're a running back coach, coach running backs. If they ask you something, give your opinion. If you're an O-line coach, coach O-line. If they ask you, give your opinion. But don't overstep your boundaries. Prove yourself to your head coach and your coordinators, and prove your worth and your value to the team. And if your job was uploading film and sweeping floors, then you're the best uploader of film and the best sweeper of floors anybody's ever seen. That's my opinion. I don't think the air raid has changed football, Jack. I think the air raid is just a philosophy of how to do certain things and get repetitions doing the things that you want to do, and how you want to do them. And I don't think the air raids necessarily change football. I think the thing, Jack, you're going to see is how the air raid changes to fit football. So things that Lincoln Riley's doing at Oklahoma and some other air raid guys are now doing to make the air raid more prevalent to today's game. And then you have guys like Mike Leach that are probably never going to change. But I think changes to the air raid to fit into what you might need to do offensively in football is going to be a bigger deal than how the air raid has changed football. I don't think the air raid really changed football at all, in my opinion. Pete Porcelli, nice Italian fellow. How would you defend flex ball when we're a 4-2-5 team? Any suggestions? Yeah, we if you're seeing motion every play, then we would set an 8-man front with the free safety in the middle of the field, and then we would every time they used orbit motion, we would put the free safety to the side of the orbit motion to take that wing vertical. If it was a team that was not using a lot of orbit motion, we may play quarters to one side and lock the wing and the wide out to the other side. Really depends on what the flex bone team is trying to do to you. But I had a video. There's a video on my YouTube channel that I've done before. When we were a 4-2-5 team, we played a flex bone team and had a really good night playing it. So, it's really what they're trying to do to attack you, making sure you've got potential verticals covered in the play action passing game, and then you determining based on their personnel what you're going to try and take away. Because ultimately, with option football, the defense decides where the ball goes, not the quarterback. So, as a defense, you can take the fullback away if you want to. You can take the cue away if you want to. You can take the pitch away if you want to. So normally what you would try and do is obviously you got to be ready to defend the formations, usually 2x2, 3x1, or some unbalanced stuff, and then you got to figure out who the best player in the triple option game is and try and take the best player out of the triple option and kind of play it from there. That's what I would do. I think ultimately it would help his offense, yes, and I think ultimately it might help his defense. They won't throw the ball for as many yards. They won't have as gaudy stats as they do, in the throwing game. But I think what you're going to find is if he were to at the places he's been where he has, you're welcome, Pete. At the places he's been where he's had access to very good running backs, I think the more he opens the running game up, the better running backs he can recruit, and then he can throw the ball to those guys in space, which is part of the air raid. So I think running the football would not only help his offense, but I think it would help him open up some doors recruiting some more players, because right now probably the best running backs are not going to go to a system like Mike Leach's, because they catch the ball a bunch, but they don't touch it the way they want to touch it in the ground game. And guys are trying to make themselves NFL prospects. They want to prove that they're an every down back, so they want to prove that they can run the ball, block people, and catch the ball. And a lot of times in the air raid, you're only doing one or two of those things, not all three of them. So, but Mike Leach has done a great job. He's been great for football, the game of football. He's been great for college football. So, who am I to sit here and say Mike Leach should change? He knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants to do. He's always done a great job with it. Outside opinion, I think they'd be better on offense if he wrinkled it a little bit, and I think they'd be better on defense. Yeah, we see some unbalanced, Kyle, from time to time. The thing with unbalanced formations is the offense gets kind of hogtied into what they can actually do. If you are an unbalanced offense that can maul your opponent all the time, then you really don't need to get out of it. But if you're an unbalanced offense where good evening, Coach Waldrop. If you're an unbalanced offense where the defense can actually, stop some of the base plays that you're doing, a lot of times you don't have a lot of answers. So, I think unbalanced formations, as difficult as they are to defend because they create so many gaps and because they're a little bit different, when you do figure out how to defend them, or you have the talent to defend them, I think it leaves the offense kind of hogtied, because they don't have a lot of those offenses don't have a lot of other things to fall back on. So if you stop there, one or two bread and butter plays, they a lot of times don't have, not all offenses, but a lot of offenses don't have anything else to do. So I think that's why unbalanced formations is kind of an oddity at times. Alain Francois, what would you say are the core pillars for a new coach to base their philosophy? You've got to, if you're going to base your philosophy, it's got to be off something you believe in. It's got to be off a mindset that you believe in. I firmly believe as a coach that your philosophy should strongly resemble your personality, the type of person you are. So, that's why we tend to be an up-tempo team. We tend to try and move fast if we can, and I want to get as many reps as I can in practice. I don't like to sit still. So, I'm a high energy guy most of the time. So I want my philosophy to dictate that. Defensively, I like to be a pressure team, but I don't like to pressure as a base defense. I like to establish a base defense with split field coverage principles behind it, and then and then I also I also I like pressuring because it fits my personality, but at the same time, I'm not going to do it just because that's who I am. But I would say you've got to figure out who you are as a coach and a person and what your personality is, and then you kind of mold your philosophy around that. Yeah, I mean, Jack, he's been at a slight disadvantage in some of those conference games, but I think there's a lot of other conference games where he's evenly matched or as good as everybody else. So he gets a lot out of players, and I think that's partially why he uses his version of the air raid is because he's hoping that people don't see it uh, a ton, but people are seeing it more and more now, so they have a little bit better understanding how to defend it. I think originally when he was due, originally when he was doing all the things he was doing, maybe early on, with Mummy at Kentucky and the smaller colleges they were at. And then when he went to Texas Tech, I don't think there were a lot of people out there that maybe knew exactly how to defend it. And I think he had a lot of success because people out there didn't know how to defend it. And now that they see it more and it's more prevalent and there's more people around that know how to defend it, I think he may want to look into wrinkling some things, but that's my opinion. He knows what he's doing. Yeah, we always try to read. I'm not so sure about. We always read under keys first, anyways, against almost every offense we play. We're going to read under keys first, and then we'll progress to backfield reads or secondary keys. But definitely versus wing T, we're going to function on under keys um, unless there are a significant amount of false key plays in there. Then we might have to cross key a wing or a back or somebody else. But I'm a firm believer that under keys first is usually the only time I change is if we tried to read a backfield key to a near guard. So if it was old school eye stuff, if we wanted to read fullback to near guard, something like that is how we would do that. But last probably 10, 15 years of my coaching career, we've been heavy under keys. You're welcome, Darius. I don't know why you wouldn't have heard it. Hopefully, my mic is up and everybody can hear everything. But you are welcome. No huddle offense for me, Jack, was a way to get more reps in practice. It was a way to attack stronger defenses. It was a way to, you know, um, if I got off the bus and felt like we weren't as good as the other team, I felt like if we cranked the tempo up early and ran certain plays, so we would try and get to the perimeter a little bit early and make the defense run. We would throw some stand-up screens or some slow screens to make the defensive line run. We would try and up the tempo early in the game and play as fast as we could, even if it wasn't successful. We were trying to do things that gave us a chance later on in the game. We would cut people a lot early. We would do some things that kind of give us an advantage as far as talent is concerned. But what really sold me on the no huddle was the amount of reps that I could get in practice. Once we got our terminology and our signals and our kids understanding how we wanted to play, the reps that we almost doubled our reps in a if we had a 12-minute team period, we went from 8 to 10 reps to getting 18 to 20 reps. So for me, it was more about a practice deal first. If you teach the defensive tackles who are getting double teamed, are you a pull down guy? Or are you someone that tries to rip and split? No, we try and split. I wouldn't say split double teams. If anything, we try to eat up double teams and kind of use a bar stool technique where you turn your hips into the down block, not you got the poster and then the down block coming. We turn our hips into the down block and kind of, yes, we'd like to split it if we could, but logically we'd like to keep the double team off the linebacker. So we don't want to get driven off the ball and we don't want anybody to be able to climb clean to the second level. So we kind of bar stool into the double team and turn our hips into the double team. And yes, we'll grab a little bit. The only time we would ever rip and pull down is if we're just getting blown 6 yards into the linebacker's lap, and we have to, then we have to find a different way. But normally speaking, double teams, we're going to bar stool. We're going to kind of turn our hips into that double or into where that down block's coming from and see if we can keep those guys off the linebackers. We do everything based on coverage. Tino Acosta. So with our we're a 3-3-5 team, so we play with 3 safeties and 5 secondary players. So we're always going to set our free safety to the strength, and then based on what he sees out there, it's Redman, Golden Blend, Pete, and there will be one in probably very shortly. As soon as I get a little bit antsy, I'll probably put one in. Um, So we would, if it's a 3-by-1 tray set with a tight end, then we would figure out the best way that we need to defend a tight end with what they're trying to do in a run game with that extra gap there. If it's a 3-by-1 set that's open, then we're going to go to our base, two deals that we love versus 3-by-1. One is great to the trip side, one is great to the single side. So, it's a matter of game plan and what the other team is trying to do. But we defend everything kind of formationally with our split field coverage based on the deployment of the receivers. We split the ball or the formation down the ball right in the middle. So we take how many receivers are over here. There's 3 of them. Who are they? And we make a coverage call. We take how many receivers over here. It's 1. Who is it? We make a coverage call, and that's the way we play. So that's just how we do it. It's very Gary Patterson, TCU like in nature. So that's how we do it. That's how we play. Almost having that contact with the players in the all-season program. Yeah, it's tough. I worry about my kids a little bit here and there, but yeah, I'm not supposed to be doing it either, Pete. I worry about my kids and how they're doing and whatnot. But the one thing I'm not really doing right now, Coach Waldrop, to be honest with you, is I'm not stressing about it. I think my kids that want to be good players, I think they're young. I think they're going to be doing things to stay active and stay in shape, even if it's riding bikes, playing basketball, whatever they're doing. I think they're going to try and stay in shape. Obviously, they're probably not cleaning, squatting unless they have a good home gym. They're not doing Olympic lifts and all that. I get it, but to be honest, I'm worried about their well-being, and I hope that they're doing the things that they need to do to stay up with their schoolwork so that when I come back, they're all still eligible. But I haven't, to be totally honest, I haven't really panicked about it yet. I don't even know what the timeline is for when we're going back. So to even think about having Google meetings or Zoom meetings with your team, I don't even know when we're going back. I don't know when we're going to be allowed in a weight room. I don't know when we're going to be allowed on campus. I don't know when we're going to be allowed to resume football activities. So until I get a time frame, oh, sorry to hear that, Carmine. Until I get a time frame of what's going on, I'm not going to put forth a plan of attack just just to have a plan of attack. I think football coaches by nature tend to be people that feel like if they're not doing something with their team, that they're going to lose games and they're going to lose out all the time. And as a 20-year head coaching veteran, I've actually taken the last 3 weeks to kind of unwind and relax, if that makes sense, without the pressure of spring football, without the pressure of, are my kids in class on time? Are they causing trouble? What's going on? I've actually kind of used this as downtime to, promote Play Fast Football and do some things on Twitter and social media and do YouTube Live. And, but as far as the football program, I haven't really got bent out of shape yet about what we're doing with our program, because as I get, older yes, I'm a teacher at school, Jack. As I get older, and a little bit more experience with some things, I start to value things a little bit differently. And these 3 weeks for me have just been a time to kind of relax and while golf courses are still open near me and practicing all the social distancing things that they're practicing, I like to go to putting greens where there's nobody there. And putt for 2 hours. I like to go, if I can play golf, I like to go play. And, the pins are out, the rakes are out of the bunkers. There's no sand to scoop for divots. There's no water. There's no ice. All the carts get disinfected. You can only ride one person in a cart, all those other things. So as long as that's going on, I've kind of used the last couple of weeks to unwind, if that makes sense. Again, Carmine, I'm sorry. When do you prefer cornerbacks inside shade? Take away the post versus outside shade zone turning. Yeah, I think for us, it depends on coverage. If we're playing two Raider palms where the corner is responsible for a number 2 coming to the flat, we're going to play with outside leverage on number 1, and we're going to try to defend the post over the top of the post. We're not going to recreate inside leverage. I've at times I've experimented a little bit with shuffling inside to recreate inside leverage, but if the post becomes an option, we're either going to close the middle of the field, or we're going to play quarters or a defense where I can tell my cornerback to play inside of number 1. But our leverage is kind of based on coverage, so that's how we choose. Obviously, a better way to defend the post is with inside leverage. I'm not going to argue that, but we do play outside leverage in some coverages. That's just how we do it. I have all weight training classes, Jack. So I have probably 75% of my football players in class, and then 25% of my other students are just regular ed students or athletes that play other sports. So I teach weight training 5 periods a day. That's all I do. Changing the culture of a team during the offseason, especially after a losing season. Again, with all the great culture things that are out there, you have to have success and you have to win a little bit for your kids to buy in. You can have every idea idea in the world. Telling me my connection is unstable. Maybe storms in the area. I don't know. Hopefully everybody's there and we're still alive and going. David, you have to have some success. I don't care who. I don't care who you study. I don't care what the culture game plan is. If you don't endorse some type of success that kids can see, they're not going to buy in. So you have to have some success, whether that be winning games, staying in games that you got blown out of last year, staying close with opponents that you've never beaten. You have to witness some version of success. If you want to start in the offseason, start maybe with grades and weightlifting goals, and set up some goals that your kids kind of no, I think it's on my end, Harold. I think I just got something that said my connection is a little bit unstable. I don't know why. I'm on the same computer I'm always on. I'm on the same Wi-Fi I'm always on. If it's slow on your end, I think it's more me than it is you guys. I don't have a notification now, but a second ago I had a notification that said my connection was a little bit something wrong with my connection. So you start off, David, if it's outside of football stuff, you start off maybe with grades and attendance and weightlifting stuff, and you set some goals and you tell the kids, all right, if you do these things, if you do these things, Carmine, don't call me out like that. If you do these things, you'll have success, and see if there's success in grades, or see if there's success in attendance, or set up weight room competitions with your kids and maybe split them into teams and see if maybe the team that has better attendance wins, or just anything that you can that you can do to witness some success off the football field. But then as soon as you come back to playing football, if you don't have success on the field, and that success, again, could be anything. It could be winning games. It could be staying close in games you've never stayed close in. It could be playing with a rival team that beat you by 50 points every time, and now all of a sudden it's 2 touchdowns. You have to have some type of success on the field, or the kids are never going to buy in. I am a firm believer in that. I don't care what the culture strategy is, or who the culture guru is, and there's a lot of great ones out there, and I love studying all of them. If you don't see some type of success with your goals and how you set those goals up, you're not going to have a lot of buy-in from your players. So in speaking to that, to change the culture, I would make my initial goals attainable, things that we can reach so that we can see success, kind of set the drill up for you to win the drill so that you can see success, so that you can keep building from there. Because if you don't see it, you're not going to get a change in culture. That's 100% my opinion. Do I have built-in quick game, or do I use simple concept? We still use our simple concepts in our quick game passing series. So we have sides that are man beaters and sides that are soft coverage or off beaters. And then you tie that in with some of our RPO stuff that we're doing. It's one of those deals where we still use our version of quick game. I've looked at some other things that are out there, maybe packaging quick game by formation. So having some deals out of 3x1 that you really like in quick game and things like that. But, quick game for us is still rhythmic passing. It's still trying to get completion percentages up and things like that. So I still use my regular quick game stuff that I think I've done some stuff on YouTube in the past. But we'll pair hitches with slants on the backside, and the quarterback will make a pre-snap read. We'll pair maybe front side verticals or a fade and an inside vertical with a backside, the backside hitch and a backside out. So we're really looking to see if we get press or tight coverage where we're going, and if we get soft or off coverage where we're going, and we try to give the quarterback a side to delineate where the football should go, and then we leave it in his hands pre-snap and post-snap. Coach, you have any built-in grants? Yeah. I really don't know as far as offense and defense, Thomas. I don't. I have a ton of books. If you can see behind me, right there's a bunch of my football books there. I like Nike Coach of the Year manuals to go back and get a lot of different opinions, because you get a lot of articles. USA Football's done some good football notes and football articles. But as far as most of my coaching books are either philosophical books or things like that. They're not necessarily. I haven't found a lot of great offensive or defensive schematic books. That's where I lean on YouTube and All 22. And for me personally, the way my brain functions, I do better when I can see things happen. If I know the schematics of what's going on, or if I understand maybe how they teach it, obviously it is a lot better. But for me, I like to see film and I like to see things happen rather than see a drawing in a book. I don't really like PDF files. I don't like drawings. Uh, but personally, for me, I like film. That's just me. Dubmatic stuff is good. R4 stuff is very good. There's a lot of good stuff out there. I just, for me and my brain, it's just not the way I function. So most of the books on my shelf, it's going to be Mike Leach's book and John Gruden's book and Tony Dungy's book and just stuff like that, more autobiography stuff or things about head coach and being a head coach and their journey and all the different things they've gone through. That's kind of the way I operate. But my go-to is YouTube. It's always going to be YouTube. And now with all 22, it's YouTube, it's film, it's all 22. That's just, I think everybody learns different. I think everybody has to do what is conducive to how they learn. So I learn through film and watching film. That's just me. Sorry, answering football questions on my phone while I do this here too. Yeah, Randy Jackson's very good. Randy Jackson's very good. He's done a great job with it. I love his stuff. So I think that's a very good recommendation, Harold. I agree 100%. Yes, 8-man football. I've heard of it. I've never coached it, so I really have a hard time. A lot of guys ask me 8-man football questions, and because I've never coached it and I really don't know a lot about it, I can't really give answers to something I've never done. So, yes, it's becoming more prevalent, though. Yeah, you're right, Coach Gardner. R4 is a cult, and you can't talk about it. And I'm going to give you my personal opinion on R4, and why I think it's really cool. Um, and it has nothing to do with schematically. I think what R4 did and Darren Slack originally did, and they tried to catapult it into every position group on the field. I think they took advantage of the fact that there is no football glossary. I told my buddy the other day, if somebody really wanted to make a lot of money, they would come up with a football glossary of all terms or a thesaurus or whatever. I think it's I don't know, glossary, thesaurus, whatever you want to call it. I'm probably wrong. One of you guys will correct me, but if you come up with a football book of terminology, like an urban dictionary per se of football slang, and everybody followed the same terminology, I think the game would be a lot simpler for everybody involved. So I think what R4 did was they took passing concepts and passing theories and they built them into a language that everybody can use and speak the same language. That's where I think they've been so great, with what they did. They kind of built it around a language. I don't think there's anything they do schematically that I've seen that is revolutionary or it's all good. It's all solid. It's sound. It makes sense. But tying the quarterback's reads and his footwork and his mechanics into the different things and then building in the rhythm, read, rush, release, I think they created a language in a world that had no language or no set language. That's where I think they did the greatest marketing. And that's just my opinion. I am coaching sixth grade with a quarterback that can't throw deep. Would you use sprint out concept? Yeah, I'd move the pocket with him, use sprint out concepts. I'd use quick game and throw the ball underneath. You got to play to the strength of your quarterback. If he can't throw deep, but maybe he's an athlete, I'd use him either in read game or in quarterback runs. That's just what you always have to play to your quarterback and don't do things that he can't do. Appreciate it, K. Beatty. It's just something that was kind of it was kind of a pet peeve for me because I sat through a lot of meetings with offensive coaches and sat through a lot of talks with offensive coaches that really didn't understand anything about defensive structure, yet they were trying to diagram plays and different things. And it's hard to attack a defense if you don't know anything about the defense. So, it was good for me. It was a video I like doing, so I appreciate it. Breaking down film or using tags and huddle. How advanced do you need to be? What tags? Carmine, I am probably the wrong person to ask for that. I don't get overwhelmingly crazy with tags and huddle. There's a lot of times in huddle I don't tag until after the season when I'm doing clinic work or if I'm speaking at clinics or I'm trying to break things down. I have some younger coaches on my staff now that I really like and I think they're going to be good for me. So I'm going to assign them some huddle stuff, but I have not been a crazy guy as far as tagging things in huddle. So, obviously things like formations and, field and boundary, down and distance, all the obvious things. But I think the biggest thing is tagging your concepts on offense and defense and your coverages or your blitz packages or your fronts and getting those to where you can group them all together and use those as teaching tape is, to me, and then obviously the editing is so easy. We're always going to tag down and distance and formation and hash mark and field boundary and stuff like that. And then you go back through and you pull out first down calls, second down calls, red zone calls, and 21 personnel and 10 personnel. I mean, that is always going to be done. But as far as getting crazier with any tags or that stuff, I don't use a lot of that, Carmine. Yeah, I heard Win Forever is a great book. I have not read it. Football Encyclopedia, Coach Greenfield. If you can get people to buy into your terminology and make one standard terminology, I think you would. I think you would make a lot of money. Yes, football needs to be in Google Translate, but unfortunately, Coach Gardner, I think if football was in Google Translate, it would be one of those things that always auto corrects to the wrong thing because there's so many there's so many things out there and so many terms out there that I think you would find yourself in Google always ended up with an autocorrect and going back and going, damn, that's not what I meant to say. I meant to say this. That would be my version of Google Translate for football. Yeah, there's been years, Carmine, to tell you the truth, where I haven't really kept track of our calls until after the season. There's years where it just depends on my staff. It depends on how much time we have and who can do it. And but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. There's been years where I haven't charted calls during the season, and I've been just fine. Pete, here's an interesting point I can give you in speaking to your team and about philosophy, culture, mindset. You always try and tell your players, especially defensively, the number of players around the ball carrier when the whistle blows the play dead is an indication of how much those players care about their teammates. So if you have more players around the ball, those players probably care more about their teammates and the team than guys that are loafing or guys that if the play's not near me, I don't run. So defensively, we always try and talk in terms of how many hats you have near the ball when the whistle's blown kind of tells you the makeup of your defense and how much your kids care about each other. On offense, it's your ability to play without the football and what you do without the football. That tells your teammates how much you care for them and what type of teammate you are. So carrying out fakes and running routes to maybe take the top off of coverage when you're not possibly going to get the football, stalk blocking if you're not involved, all those things that away from the football. Everybody that plays a skill position wants the ball. They all want the ball on every play. It's human nature. What you do without the ball kind of tells your teammates and your coaching staff how much you like winning, how much you like your team, how much you like competing. So those two things for me on offense and defense are kind of how we judge what's going on. So it's helmets around the ball when the whistle's blown, what you do without the ball on offense. Somebody else asked that question, Daniel, and there were a lot of different answers out there. My opinion was all the books I have are usually autobiographies in nature from head coaches talking about their experience as a head coach, building a program, how they got into job, how they moved up the ladder. I don't have a lot of schematic books. When it comes to schematics, I read a lot of Nike Coach of the Year or manuals like that, USA Football manuals, or I read a lot of stuff like that because I can get more information and different varying information on multiple schemes from multiple people in one setting. That's what I choose. What do you recommend opposite of Tripp's concepts? The emotional on? You mean on offense, Thomas? Or if we're in 3-by-1, we don't motion a lot because once we're in 3-by-1, I want the quarterback to understand the picture. When you use motion will gain advantages. It'll gain leverage. It'll gain numbers. But motion also changes pictures. So you have to be willing. You have to be willing to understand that if you're going to be somebody that motions a lot, it's going to change pictures for your offensive line and your quarterback and your receivers. And are you willing to have those pictures change, or would you? I'm a guy personally that I'd rather play with tempo and less motions and give my quarterback a picture that I can teach him to say that when it's this picture, this is the read, this is the conflict defender. If we're running an RPO or if it's triple option, here's the give keep read, and then here's the keep pitch read. So I like I like simple pictures. I like simple things to teach a quarterback. The more you shift, trade, motion, you're going to create. It's all about how an offense tries to create numbers and advantages and leverage and space and grass. And no way is bad, in my opinion. I don't think there's a poor way of doing things when it comes to offensive football, but you got to understand what you're doing. The more motions you use, the more you're going to have to teach your O-lineman. If you're a zone team and you have your O-lineman or your center declare a point man of where he's working, and you motion and the defense changes, you might have to change that point, and that's not easy to do. So I think about things like that when thinking about motion. We are a dynamic stretching team, and it usually takes us about 8 to 10 minutes every day, Pete. We are not a static stretch team. We are a dynamic flex team. During your weekly practices, do you rep your schemes versus multiple defensive structures, or you just game plan around the structure you believe? We will spend most of the time around the structure we're going to see, but we always try and throw in, wild card front. So we're going to throw in. We're a 3-3 stack team, so we see it more. We're going to throw in some 3-4 Okie or base 3-4 stuff, and if we think we're going to be seeing a bunch of over, we'll mix in a little under. But I firmly believe that the team you're getting ready to play against is probably going to play what they show on film most of the time. If they don't, they're probably not a very good football team, and they're just trying to throw shit against the wall to see what sticks. And those teams are annoying at first, but eventually, the cream rises to the top because they can't fit runs they can't fit runs in a scheme they just learned 2 days ago. They can't play coverages properly in a scheme they just learned 2 days ago. So I'm a firm believer in really focusing in on during the week on what you're going to see that week. But a lot of times in spring football, or a lot of times early in camp, we will work a bunch on odd structures, or 5-man boxes, 3-2 boxes, or 3-3 6-man boxes, just so our kids are comfortable if it comes up during that week. We never go. I don't know if I've gone past 2 hours in the last 15 to 20 years of my coaching career. I am not a believer in that. I'm a believer in high tempo practices with a lot of energy, a lot of movement. I think you will certainly lose them after 2 hours. I know there's the old adage that, guys like Lou Holtz said, we're going to get 2 good hours of practice every day, whether it takes us 10 or hours, we're going to get 2 good ones. I'm not a believer in that. We're going 2 hours, and if we can't get it done, we get on the field the next day, and that's just me. But that's also along the lines of a question that somebody asked earlier. That's my personality. That's who I am. That's what I believe in. So, another thing for me as a head coach, or even when I was assistant coach, if I'm going out there with a lot of juice and a lot of energy, I probably only have about 2 good hours to give you with that juice and that energy. Otherwise, if I'm out there to 3.5 hours, I'm giving you, 1 good hour or an hour and a half of good work, and then I'm giving an hour and a half of nothing. So I'd rather my coaches give me everything they got, juice it up, have energy, and give me what you got for an hour and 45 minutes and get back the next day than I would stay for 3 hours. That's just me, though. Good question, though. And I think that's always going to be – that'll be debated forever. I think that – and again, the one thing I try to explain to people over and over again is I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I just think there's some people who do things better than others, and there's some things that seem to work better than others, but I don't think there's a right or wrong way. There's teams that practice for an hour and a half and will beat you by 1,000 points. And then there's teams that practice for 4 hours and they'll beat you by 1,000 points. There's teams that practice for an hour and a half and won't win, and there's teams that practice for 4 hours and won't win. So, that's what, to me, what makes football so great is there's more than one way. I guess the connection's breaking up there. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to do things, and you have to find ways that are conducive to you. The 3-3 stack is better for my personnel right now, K. Beatty. It's different from what people see all the time. The 4-2-5 was kind of static in what everybody was seeing, so I felt like teams blocked it a little bit easier. The school I'm at the last 4 years, we have more linebacker safety types than we do D linemen. So I don't know if it's more flexible per se, or if it's just a better fit for me right now. And the fact that it's different. Like I said, I change as I get older in my career. And now as I'm getting older in my career, I think different schematically is just as good as complex or multiple per se. I think anytime you can do things that are sound, that your kids understand, if it's different than people see, I think you got a shot. And that's why I'm interested to see what the trends are going to be. If people are going to go back to more 21 personnel and wide zone stuff like the 49ers and the Titans and NFL guys, or if people are going to go back to maybe single wing stuff, and if people are going to go back to maybe flex bone or wing T, I'm always interested in seeing the trends in football, how the trends go, what's happening, where it's going to. And I think this year is a really interesting year to look at trends in football because of all the downtime that people have had and all the virtual clinics and all the sharing of information that's been going on for coaches to try and kill time and stay sane and stay relatively normal. I'm not so sure it's going to be a good thing. I think it might hurt a lot of people, honestly. I still think, and I don't mean this in a bad way, as far as attacking anybody or taking personal shots at anybody, but I still think there are people out there that concern themselves more with the plays than they do how to teach what goes on in those plays. So I honestly think that this could be really good for football and football coaches that could gain a lot of knowledge in the offseason that maybe they didn't have time in the regular world per se to gain. I think coaches can get smarter, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I know a lot of people that get smarter and coach worse, if that makes sense. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. We actually do a simple 5-man drill where I set 5 kids up in front of me, and on each, I'll put 5 kids about 2 yards apart in front of me, and on each side, probably outside the numbers, I'll have 5 cones set up that start where the first cone is. The next cone is 5 yards behind that. Another cone, 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards. And what we do is, the kids will start chopping their feet on a whistle. They're going to do an up down, and when they pop up, I'm going to point in a direction for them to go to. And then depending on where they are, they got to go to the closest cone. So when they get up, they don't know what cone they're going to. They have to wait for me to give the direction. So the guy on the end is either going to go the first cone if I point towards him, or he's going to go to the 5th cone if I point away from him. The second guy in's going 2nd or 4th. The guy in the middle is going 3rd cone both ways. So what we try to do is we try to incorporate the idea that the closer you are to the ball, the tighter, flatter your pursuit angle is, the further away from you are from the ball, the deeper the angle you have to take to get there. And we use it as a conditioning drill. We use it as a teaching drill. And I found that a drill like that works very good for me because we don't need rabbits. We don't have to set the drill up. We have a coach on each side. And if they don't like the effort, or if the kids don't break it down after that rep, they make them go again. So we have ways to make sure that they're sprinting. We have ways to make sure. The other thing we do is we build leverage into the drill, and we make them finish top side of the cone that they're going to. So if I'm running to my left, I have to finish and break down to the left of the cone that I aim for, because that tells me that my angle is in front of the ball carrier and not behind the ball carrier. So to go in pursuit and run in a flat line and miss a ball carrier by 5 yards doesn't really do you a lot of good. You've got to take an angle that's going to get you to where the ball carrier is. So we also incorporate leverage into the drill. And then we incorporate leverage into the drill so they know how to get in front of the ball carrier. 6 men in a 5-cone drill, and whoever doesn't have the problem with that, it might be, Carmine, is if there's 6 people in 5 cones, obviously you can all run to one cone. And when a cone's taken, you run to the next one. So you learn how to not stack the same colored jersey, kind of like you would do on kickoff or punt coverage. You never want to run behind the same colored jersey. I'm more worried about the angles that we're taking and getting them to understand that my angle changes based on whether the ball is coming to me or going away from me. There's a lot of talk about it possibly changing. I don't see it changing in high school. I think it's still going to be 3 yards. If it changes, it changes. I'm not going to worry all too much about it. If it's going to change, it's going to change, and there's nothing I can do about it. If it doesn't change, it doesn't change. Whatever it is, whether it stays the same or it changes, it's just a matter of how they enforce it and what they're doing to enforce it. So, that's just my opinion. If it stays the same, then we're going to use it to our advantage on offense, and we're going to try and work our best to coach around it on defense. But it's there whether you like it or not. So if it changes, it might be good for the game. I don't know if it doesn't change, it doesn't change. We've run a 3-3 the past 2 years, and the one problem we have is containing quarterback in the pass game. Yes, at times, Mike, we have. we have something built in that we think handles that. We just haven't done a great job coaching it. The last 3.5 years, I've had a Division I defensive end on my team, and the last 2 years that we went to the 3-3 stack, we gave him a two-way go in his pass rush lanes because he was my best player, and I didn't want him to always worry about containing the quarterback. So because we only rush 3 in our base defense, we give the ends two-way goes, and we use the Mike as a secondary contained fourth rusher. So the Mike is a guy that's not involved in our base coverages. So he's a guy that's supposed to be sitting there playing a quarterback, excuse me, a quarterback that leaves the pocket or a quarterback that scrambles is built in to be handled by the Mike linebacker. We just haven't done. We had a 10th grade Mike linebacker that's going to be a really good player, but some things were a little bit over his head last year, and he just didn't do a good job with it, and I didn't do a good job coaching him. But we have a way built in to handle that, yes. Yes, my Mike is the middle stack, Coach Gardner. Yes, it'll affect RPOs, Victor. Obviously, if you can't get 3 yards downfield in a run game, you're going to have to change your RPOs because, you're going to have to use schemes that don't climb as quickly. You're going to have to worry about how quickly your uncovered guys can climb because they can't get further than maybe a yard downfield. So I think it'll affect the RPO game a little bit, but the NFL's found a way to throw some RPOs and do some stuff. So, everybody will figure out whatever the rules are. We'll figure them out. And when we figure them out, they'll still be RPOs, I believe, because it's a big part of offense and how teams attack defenses. So, obviously if the rules change, we have to adapt to it, and it'll change. I can't lie to you and say it won't change our RPOs. It'll certainly change them a little, but what it changes is how we're teaching the climbing and the combinations of who's going to depart and the angle at which they depart and how quickly they depart. That's certainly going to change because if you're going to mesh with a running back and read off somebody, if the rule is a yard downfield, guys can't climb that quick. So that's what I think will change. There's several other rules that I think should probably change that affect the safety of the game. A lineman 3 yards downfield affects the schematics of the game, and defenses feel like they're at a disadvantage. But what if you go back and tell the defense, lineman 3 yards downfield is tough for them to read keys. What if you go back and tell the defense that they can't stem or they have to line up in one front because it's not fair for the offense? I would think it would be more horizontal leverage and maybe things like inside zone and wide zone going to more horizontal push and horizontal leverage than vertical leverage. But I would imagine if you're going to try vertical leverage, you would probably have to carry more gap type schemes that you can stay on double teams longer. Something like the duo play at the 3 technique where you get a double on the 3 and a double on the 1 and a base on the 5. So really the only guys that might climb are involved in a double. So now you can hang on a double longer before you climb. I would think that's, to me, that's where I think you would go if the rule changes. That's just my opinion. For us, it all starts with the run play and how many guys we can block in the box and how many they have in the box. And, it starts with who the conflict defender is if we're throwing RPOs. If it's a triple option scheme, we start with who the, give keep read is and then who the, keep pitch read is. And I don't know if you'd call it a system or not. I just know how within the way I run my offense, how the things I need to teach my quarterbacks and the boxes that we're looking for and need to teach in the run game and how many guys we have blocking in a run game and how many guys we can block in a box and how many we can't and what we need to do with the football if we can't block it because we don't audible. So there's definitely a system to it, K. Beatty, but I don't know. I don't know per se. It's my system. It's how I go about teaching my quarterbacks in our run game and our RPO game. Let me go to Carmine first. How much time on special teams? We tend to spend a lot of time on special teams. We do at least 2 portions probably every practice. We do one either at the beginning or in the middle of practice and then something towards the end. But I think we spend a fair amount of time on special teams. Timothy, if you're going to run duo, your back's probably going to read off of an inside backer, not a down lineman. So most of the time, it's going to be that play side inside linebacker that your back's going to read on and read off of. And, if he fits an interior gap, your back's going to bounce. If he goes over the top, he's going to stay and cram inside. So the change for the back usually becomes reading a linebacker, not a down lineman. Our duo is a lot different than NFL duo, though, because we're not a tight end team. So our duo was it was how we ran our read schemes out of it. So we'd run duo out of 10 personnel and read a 5 technique. Then we would kick a 5 technique and run RPOs out of the duo. So duo really is probably meant a little bit more to be run from compressed sets and bigger 21, 22 personnel sets with tight ends and wings, and kind of maul everything down inside and see if you can get the ball to bounce. And most of the teams in the NFL or college, they're going to crack strong safeties and free safeties and leave the corner unblocked. And if the Mike linebacker fits and the back bounces, they put the back by himself on a corner and make the corner try and tackle. So our duo was 100% duo by rule. It was just different in nature. And that kind of rubs some of the purists the wrong way. If you're a Jim McNally fan or an NFL O-line coach fan, it's still the duo play. It's power without a puller. We're looking for 2 double teams, but it's a little bit different in nature. So some people get freaked out about that, but it's just what we did and how we did it. So, yeah, the great thing about power is it's so versatile nowadays. You've got regular power, then you got power read, you got power toss read, you got power read with a back, you got power read with a jet, you've got power RPOs now. You block 6 in the box and read overhang. So you're welcome, Timothy. The biggest thing with power that drives me nuts is people that like running power always want to mock RPOs and say run. RPO means run power often. Well, a lot of times I talk to guys that run power. If you're going to add tight ends or backs, or you're going to add surface or gaps, or you're going to add helmets to a box to run power, you're doing that to block people. So if you could still run power and read somebody that you don't have to block, why would it not still be a great football play just because you've tagged the word RPO or you've tagged in a route concept? The only argument those people would have is if they want to run power, they want to run power, and they don't want their quarterback. They don't want their quarterback delineating if power gets given or thrown. Power is a play for them that they want to maul and get downhill. And I get that part. I have no problem with that part. But to say that RPO means run power often or whatever, yeah, we run power often too. We just tag it with power read and RPOs and everything else. So as always, Coach Gardner, thank you. You grilling tonight? Any barbecue? Yeah, I did a bad job this year, Beatty, with we had the dart play in, and that was the reason we had it, because it was going to go away from the sniffer and it was going to be a tendency breaker. And I should have ran more jet dart read and more dart toss read and things that were, have perimeter plays and they a way to get the toss out quick to the perimeter, but it's a conflict in reads because there's a tackle pulling away from the toss play, and I just got caught up in some other stuff and did a lousy job coaching. But my original ideology between the dart play instead of the counter play was going to be the dart play gave me something away from the sniffer, where we always ran counter as an OF counter using the sniffer as the wrapper. So my sniffer took me to a lot of plays. All right, if you can, send some down to Jacksonville when you're done barbecuing it up. Appreciate it, Coach Gardner. The dart was meant to be a misdirection play for me, and I just got away from it, got into doing some other things. And just once the season came around, I just did a really bad job incorporating the dart play. We had some success with it. We had some success with dart triple and throwing key screens off it and all, but I had so many other things in that we should have done with the talent that I had, and I just didn't do it. So that's 100% on me. I just was talking to somebody yesterday about it and couldn't believe that I didn't run more, jet with dart read and toss dart read stuff that would have conflicted the defense more. It just, like I said, just one of those things. Bad job by me. Bad job managing what's in and what I want to call and how I want to do it. So, you live and you learn, and hopefully next year, if I'm calling the offense or not, I still haven't determined whether I am or not. But if I'm not calling it, I can give at least my opinion to people to say, hey, look, we talked about doing these things in the off season. Let's stick to doing them and not get away from them. So unfortunately, I got away from the dart play. Probably going to go back to counter OF and go back to some of the things I used to do, and counter was a big one along with power. So we're probably going to go back to counter OF, and haven't ran it in a couple of years. So, but also looking at going into more zone, inside zone and wide zone theory. So we got to see how inside zone, wide zone, and counter fit together. Got to see if our lineman can do it. Got to see what our quarterback can handle. So one thing I know at the place I'm at now, I got two really good backs that I love. So we've got to do some things that keep them involved heavily. Would probably be a great time for me right now if I had to go back and look at the Georgia Southern stuff or the New Mexico stuff, the 3-back zone option stuff, and multiple cruise backs and multiple tailbacks, and running your base offense with all triple option theories with lead blockers and different action from the backs. That's what I think we should look at. Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to go. Spread wing T with a lot of jet wing T is a great offense. You incorporate some option principles into that off a belly, and I think you've got yourself a dynamic offense. You break formations a little bit and throw the ball. I think it's an even better offense. But it's it's one of those things where whatever it is, whatever you build, you've got to, if you sit around in the off season and build something, you've got to have the wherewithal to stay with what you built. And unfortunately, I got away from it, and that's just my fault. So. Game planning for the week, we're always going to do the things that we do well and find ways to attack a defense based on what we do well. I'm not a big fan on game planning things just to attack a certain defense that week. I don't think our kids run it well. I don't think we execute it well. So I'm a big fan of doing what we do and then finding the things that we like. And then obviously there's going to be some wrinkles and some things that every game plan has to have in. There's going to be some, maybe some downfield shots drawn up or maybe some trick plays or gadgets. But as far as the base game plan, we carry what we carry pretty much every week. And you spend a lot of time repping things with your kids to get to a game and not run what you run because of a certain defense or, now there may be something we carry that we don't like a lot that week and I only run it 3 times. There might be something that we carry that last week we ran 3 times and the next week we run 15 times, but we carry what we carry and then we wrinkle and add a few things from there. But I don't like creating offenses in a game plan every week just to create things against the defense. I don't think high school kids do well with that. And at the end of the day, try and find a way to get your best players on their worst players in space if you can. And if they're good up front, try and find ways around that. If they're good on the back end, try and find ways around that. Just attack personnel, and understand going in. Don't fight a losing battle. Understand going in where they're good and where you're good and where they're bad and you're bad, and just try and match the things up from there. But my biggest advice to somebody is don't draw up new things for that. I don't know if I per se have a whole video. I did a video during this week about the difference between playing some man cut coverages at the goal line and then playing in certain scenarios a 7 across, heels on the goal line, vision and break concept, which is what we do. And so the way our 7 across, heels on the goal line, vision and break is not as in depth as a lot of other people's red zone coverages are, and we only use it certain spots on the field in certain scenarios. So I don't know if I have anything in general that'll go fully into detail about those things, but I did just do a video on some man coverage with cut players and then some 7 across, heels on the goal line stuff to change it up versus either spread teams or teams that are going to try and get a lot of picks and rubs down on the goal line because they know you're a man team. Usually had 3 or 4 run plays every week in a rotation with variations off of that. So power and then power read or power toss read, and then RPOs tag to power dart with jet dart read and quarterback dart and toss read dart, buck sweep, and our duo play with different variations where we read it, we kick it. We have ways where we can trap a 3 technique with the sniffer and wham it. We have ways that we insert a sniffer on an inside linebacker and make it an ISO. So 3 to 4 run plays probably carried every week, probably 3 or 4 drop back passes, our general quick game, and then probably two or three screens, one or two boots, and one or two play action shots. So overall plays, I don't know if I could tell you, but I don't carry a lot. I can tell you that. Yeah, K Beatty, it's always going to be that'll always be a dilemma. There's going to be times where it works. There's going to be times where you feel like you don't have enough. I just got to a point where I got tired of always wanting the right answer and the right play, and then having my kids not get lined up or not execute the play. And I just got to a point where having kids understand what they're doing and trying to win games that way was a little bit um, more satisfying or satiating for me than trying to always out scheme the other coach or make it a game of that coach versus me. I used to do that when I was younger, and I found out that it's not about me, it's not about the other coach, it's about the kids on the field, and you got to let those kids on the field figure out the winner and the loser. And um, the sad thing about high school football or junior high football or youth level football is 80 to 90% of the time the game's already been dictated before the ball is even snapped. And a lot of times, as a coach, all you're trying to do is maybe stay in a game or pull off a miracle. But um, you know, in the NFL is the ultimate measure of coaching because the talent is so even. Division One big conference football is getting a little bit still lopsided as far as the talent is concerned, and high school's even worse. The talent is very rarely equal. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate you as well. The talent is very rarely equal. It's often very lopsided in nature, and a lot of times as a coach, you have to understand going in that in that game plan, you're trying to hang in, you're trying to stay as long as you can, and you're trying to keep it close and maybe pull off something at the end. But as a coach, you've got to motivate your team, and you've got to talk to a team a certain way. But when you close the door to your office and watch film, going in pretty much every week what it's going to be like. And when you've been doing it, I've been a head coach for 20 years now and coaching football for 23 years in high school and small college for 2 years, 21 years in high school. So I have a pretty good understanding when I turn tape on of what that week Friday night is probably going to be like. And I know going into games that we have to play absolutely out of our minds to keep close. And then I know the games going in that we need to not make mistakes and play our game, and we should be fine. So, it's just one of those deals that you live and you learn. And I'm at a point as I get older in my career now that I want simplicity. I want functionality. I want things that our kids can do. Yes, I like being diverse. Yes, I like being multiple, but at the same time, I want something that when the kids get on the field, I know that they know what they're doing and how to execute it. If it's something that feels like it's a great concept, but the kids can't do it, then it's just not good. That's my opinion. Um, Good question, K. Beatty. Blocking and tackling would be number one. I really don't care what they know about the offense per se. Um, Blocking and tackling, understanding if you can get them to block basic plays, if you can get them to understand how to block a power play, if you can get them to understand how to block maybe a zone play or a counter play or a dart play, that would be important. If you can get them to understand that plays have rules and pass protections have rules and to understand your role in the rule of the play, that would be great. If you could get defensive linemen and linebackers and secondary guys to understand where to look, um, where their eyes belong, if you can get D linemen to understand block reaction and block destruction, if you can get linebackers to understand how to read under keys or cross key backs or whatever they're reading, if you could get kids to understand the difference between zone and man coverage, those are the things at that level I think everybody should be focusing on. But unfortunately, at that level, winning and losing is going to come down to what everybody looks to do and what everybody wants to do. So it's going to come about plays. And at that level, they're going to teach plays that they saw on Saturday and Sunday. And the plays aren't going to have any rules, and they're not going to have any method to teaching those plays. They're going to put the plays together and hope that they work on a Tuesday night. And in my experience of junior high football, watching it for 20 years, when I go to games that are played in our stadium, or if I go watch a junior high that feeds us at another stadium, if they struggle on defense, they're going to blitz, and they're going to hope that they get there before they can be blocked. And that's what you end up watching junior high games that are nothing but, blitz every down, and guys hoping that their kids block somebody is usually what I witness. but it's tough at that level. It's tough to find good coaches. It's tough to get qualified coaches. It's tough to get coaches to understand that their role as a youth or a junior high coach is to build football players for the next level. Their role is not to win a Super Bowl. I think every coach at every level thinks that if they have success and they win, somebody from a higher level is going to find them and hire them. So I think a lot of times it's either dads or people trying to get into a coaching job somewhere and trying to prove a point in youth football rather than just trying to teach the game. And that's really my opinion. And I don't know if my opinion's right or wrong. It's my opinion. It's what I feel from watching it for a while. And, I think it's very tough to coach at that level. It's hard enough to coach at high school, especially, on the JV level is extremely tough. So I know it's got to be even harder at that level to coach. But if you were asking me, I would tell you that you need to focus on schemes. On the fundamentals and the techniques required to execute schemes and not on the schemes themselves. Alexander, I think that if I'm doing my job as a coach, my kids should be prepared to play in college. I don't ever run anything per se so that my kids are prepared in college. But what I do tell my players is if they run the things that we're running and they understand how to do that, they'll have an easier time in college. So I feel like we do a fairly good job on offense and defense because of what we're running and how we teach it. I feel like we do a fairly good job of preparing them for college, but I don't think it is the coach's job and his job description to prepare kids for college. I think it's your jobs to get kids to have an enjoyable football experience and get kids to do things in high school with grades and attendance. And I think it's your job to build a program that way. It's not your job to build a program that gets kids ready for college football. But if you're doing a good job as a head coach, then I think your kids will always be ready to play college football. And if you're a wing T team and maybe those kids go to college in a spread RPO deal, linemen still know how to down block. They still know how to pull. Hopefully they have a little bit of an understanding how to pass set. But, if you're a great wing T team that wins a lot of games and competes for state championships, don't change just so your kids are prepared to go to college. The good players will figure it out when they get there. And half the time in college, they're going to change positions anyways. And then when they get to college, those coaches are going to teach them different things than you teach anyway. So I don't really worry about that part. Yeah, Rick, a stud's going to be a stud anywhere. The best players are usually the best players, as they advance in level, unless they're a stud because they're bigger and faster, and then they don't develop anymore, and everybody catches up to them. That's a possibility. But the problem to me, when you look at it as a stud, the problem is at the lower level or at the youth level, they just find a way to get the ball to the studs, and they don't tell everybody else around that how they fit into the concept of getting the ball to the stud, and it doesn't help us at the higher level. That's just my opinion. I think there's certainly politics around my current job that I'm at right now. I absolutely love because there aren't a lot of politics involved from my administration. My principal is a former college football player, a former defensive coordinator in high school. He's the guy that I coached against when he was coaching and I was coaching at a different school. So he understands talent. He understands that there's going to be, weeks that you should win and weeks that you probably won't win. So my job is great because there's not a lot of pressure from that standpoint. We do not have a huge booster club, so there's not a lot of pressure from that standpoint. But I took a job at a place that was a small town, and I wanted to experience what that was like. And I got fired in 2 years because I didn't do the things that they wanted, or maybe the booster club wanted, or I didn't fit in with the people in that town. So I've seen both sides of it for sure. And it's around, and there are a lot of politics. But, for me, unfortunately, I did deal with some of it, and it ended very quickly. And it was good to experience. I liked the place. I liked the atmosphere of small town football games, but it's just not a good fit for me because I'm not worried about booster clubs. I'm not worried about admin. I'm not worried about sheriffs. I'm not worried about police departments. You hired me to coach football, and you hired me to coach high school students, and that's what I'm going to do. You didn't hire me, or at least if you hired me to have dinner with certain people. I'm all for raising money. I'm all for going out there and selling a program. That's part of a head coach's job. I don't have a problem with that. But at the same time, I'm not taking a job to have dinner with people 3 nights a week or whatever. I'm coaching high school kids in a football program. I want to do that and go home. That's just what I want to do. Um, I mean, obviously, it's a little bit difficult if you don't have a lot of experience in football. But it's not impossible to be a high school football coach if you hadn't grown up in the states or hadn't lived in the states. But obviously, it's going to come down to experience and proving yourself. And a good coach is a good coach. There's a lot of coaches out there that weren't even good football players or didn't even play football that are great coaches. So it's not impossible. Yeah, I think Rick actually. Rick spoke at my PlayFast clinic this year. I know Rick a little bit, and I think the open enrollment was probably the be all end all for him because Rick runs a very tight program, very culture oriented, very rule oriented. And when there was another high school in town that the kids found out that they could go to and not have to adhere to all of Rick's rules and still be able to win football games. Originally Apopka was the only show in town or the best show in town, so nobody left. Eventually, when Wekiva started getting good and started beating Apopka, kids that were tired of doing things Coach Darlington's way eventually left. And what Coach Darlington probably found out was if you have nothing to hold over those kids to do it your way and they leave, it's not as good. And he chose to pick up and leave. And he's a great football coach. He's an innovative mind. I love the guy to death. And hopefully I wish him all the best in Alabama, and hopefully he'll be back to speak at a future clinic because he's a great football coach. But I think he experienced a lot of different things, and I think he experienced more politics at Valdosta when he left Apopka first before he went back to Apopka. But I think it was more an open enrollment deal, and I lost 3 starters that started for me as 10th graders. Played with me their 9th, 10th, and 11th grade year, started with me as varsity players their 10th and 11th grade year, and left me after their 11th grade year to go to a school. And then I lost 3 junior high kids that are zoned to go to me to the same school. So I lost probably 5 or 7 players to the same school because of open enrollment, quote unquote, open enrollment rules. So it affects everybody. Now there's loyalty I don't even know if it's a word anymore. There's some places that, there's some places there's still loyalty. There's some kids that are still understand what the game is supposed to be about. But in general, there is no loyalty. There's no honor amongst thieves, and winning and losing is a really big deal to people, and they're going to do whatever it takes to win. So that part of our profession is not getting any better, and it's going down the wrong path, and it's going to continue that way until changes are made. Hey, Sean Moses, I appreciate it. During a time like this, social media is about the only way we can do anything. So trying to partner up with companies like Dome, who make this trucker mesh Rydell hat, partnering up with them and doing a question of the day giveaway and them giving away hats. And I'm going to do something on YouTube Live later this week with GameStrat sideline replay system that we use. So just trying to find creative ways to partner up with the businesses that we use and draw more eyes to their product and get more people, marketing for people digitally and social media marketing. That's kind of what I'm doing now. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate it's only because of all of you. So I have to thank all of you. Yes, we see some 32 personnel. We don't make a ton of changes in our 3-3 stack. We go to quarters concepts and try and get 9 guys in the box as quick as we can, so we get the free safety a little bit more involved, and becomes more of a 32 personnel becomes a lot like, pro eye stuff in a way. Obviously, we got to look at where our overhangs are going to be based on double tights, and but bottom line is we got to get more numbers to the box, and if it's 32 personnel that's condensed with those 2 tights and they don't spread it out, then obviously the corners are going to get even closer, and we're going to find ways to maybe involve the corners in the run game. So it's a pain in the neck, especially when that personnel is that much better than yours. I really don't think it matters how you adjust in the stack stuff, but we don't create different fronts. We play a bunch of bear stuff, but we don't create different fronts just for that personnel. We respond to it within the tools that we have in our toolbox. And hopefully, if the talent is equal, we'll have success. We've had a ton of success against teams, and then we've had teams that have blown us out of the water. We've had great success against single wing teams, and then we've had some bad success. And we've had great success against 21 personnel, and then we've had some bad success against 21. So, yeah, it comes down to talent. And but as far as schematically, Coach O'Malley, we don't break the stack very often, and we don't do a lot of stuff differently than than we would in some other things. Obviously, we just have to have different answers in our toolbox because our coverages might change the more we have to involve secondary players. Uh, yeah, the kids recruiting each other is a tough one because you really can't pinpoint that on anybody. At the end of the day, it's up to me, it's still up to the head coach at every program. If you're out looking for kids, trying to find kids to replace the kids you got because the kids you got aren't good enough, you're going to find means of getting those kids. If nobody ever does anything about it and you're constantly allowed to add to your roster from outside schools, then nothing's ever going to change. Kids recruiting kids is never going to change because there's no way to stop that. So it's just a bad situation all around, in my opinion. And really, it's up to the kids that leave a program to go somewhere else. That just speaks volumes about them. Um, oh, love it. Where in Nassau County? Um, Kids that leave programs, it speaks volumes about them. And the worst part to me is, you know, in the area I grew up in and the time period I grew up in, if people left our high school to go play somewhere else, we probably wouldn't still be friends. Um, unless you left to go to a Catholic school because your family believed in private school, and we didn't compete against you because in New York on Long Island you don't compete against private schools. That's a different story. But if you went to a school in our town that was different from us and we had to compete against you, we probably weren't still going to be friends because, if you leave me in football, you're going to leave me somewhere else. So if if we get in a street fight somewhere and there's three of us and three of them, and we're not winning the street fight, it's going to end up with five of them against one of us because you're going to leave us then too. So, I always viewed it as not only a loyalty deal, but it was a character deal, and it lets me know who you are as a person. And so, but at the same time, there's the other. Oh, nice. I'm a Valley Stream guy. I went to Valley Stream Central. Never played Clark. Never. We were in Conference 2, so Garden City, Long Beach, Levittown Division. Um, uh, Memphis at the time, but never played against Clark. But spent a lot of time in East Rockaway, I can tell you that. That there's going to be people out there that say, well, coaches leave all the time and coaches can get up and go where they want. Why can't kids? I get it. I don't know if I have an argument for that. I don't know if that's if that's something we can really argue. So college coaches can leave in the middle of the night and do what they want. So why can't kids? So that argument's always going to be there too. But I have my opinion on it. My opinion's not going to change. It is what it is, and people agree with it or they don't agree. And either way, I'm fine with it. So yeah, Porcelli sounds like an Italian guy. He's a nice Italian fella. We signal everything, Rick. Yes, we are a no huddle team. We never huddle, and everything we do is a signal. How do you get into coaching? I'm 17 years old, love football, love the idea of coaching in the future, just a bit lost on how I would potentially do so. You've got to get with a program somewhere. You've got to volunteer with a youth program, a Pop Warner team, a middle school team, a high school team. If you really want to get into it, then you probably need to pursue an education degree in college because, education is one of the only, unless you're independently wealthy, education is one of the only careers that match the time and the hours that need to be put in a high school football program. So I highly suggest, if you're really into it, I highly suggest being an education major. And to get into it, I highly suggest volunteering at a local Pop Warner youth group or middle school. Or find myself in Arizona, there'll be a job for you because coaches change jobs like, I don't know, around here and the kids are using that. Yeah, I get that too, baby. I don't know if I'll ever find myself in Arizona. Wouldn't mind it because there's some great golf courses out there, and I'm a big time lover of the game of golf. So, I think that's everywhere, though, to be honest with you, Beatty. I don't think that's an Arizona deal. It's in New York now. It's on Long Island. It's everywhere. It's just we live in a different world right now, and there's a little bit different value put on things. Uh, I don't know if there's an answer or really how to fix it. I just know that it's a problem. And for me, here's the deal. I'm never going to do it. I'm going to argue against it every day of my life that I'm involved. And, if it ever gets anywhere for me, great. If it doesn't, then, it's my opinion, and I'm going to coach my program the way I want to. And at the end of the day, kids that don't want to be there, just go out the door and let me coach the kids that want to stay. That's, as long as, we were talking earlier about politics and stuff. If I lose 5 or 6 starters to another school, I'll coach the kids I got and I'll love coaching the kids I got. But if I lose to that school or if I lose to other schools because I lost 5 or 6 starters, as long as there's no politics and my admin understands what's going on, and they understand that those kids are leaving because they're being coerced to leave and they're not leaving because our program is terrible, or, there's always going to be that argument that they leave, kids leave to go because you don't do enough for them to get college scholarships. And I had kids leave my team this year, and I have a Division I player on my team, and the team they went to didn't have anybody signed D1. And then the kids that left me all ended up potentially signing to go to JUCOs. So they left me because of college opportunities, and they end up at junior colleges. It is what it is. And I don't wish any harm on them. I hope they have success in junior college, but don't ever come back and try and talk to me. Don't ever come back and try and be friends with me. You're dead to me as far as that's concerned, and go on your way and have success. I don't wish ill will. Just don't come near me. And I tell our kids all the time, if you're around them, don't come around me, and don't bring them around me. That's just how I was raised. Do you like to change your O-line splits to gain angle advantages on different plays? Now, your split should always be, smart splits. So based on the play you're trying to do. So, for instance, if we're trying to read a defensive end on an inside run, we're probably going to take bigger splits and try and remove that end a little bit based on where the combination is going to happen. If I want to get the ball to the perimeter, I'm going to take tighter splits and bring that end in a little bit closer. So I'm a big believer in smart splits, and you need to adjust your splits based on the scheme and what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah, I think there's something, Alexander, to be said about that. Thank you, Joe, for that comment. I appreciate it. Alexander, there's definitely something to be said about making practice fun. There's definitely something to be said about being able to. I've always been able to relate to players. We have common interests. I'm still young at heart, even though I'm going to be 48 this year. Some people think that I'm probably too player friendly with some of the things that I do, but I don't really know. I'm a player's coach. I've always been a player's coach. I don't know another way to do it. But, yeah, I think making practice fun and keeping kids involved is the best way to maintain them. And then if you win, you got an even better chance of retaining them. But I think that's a very good point, Alexander, about trying to make practice fun and not boring, not mundane, not repeatable all the time. I know you have to have a structure within your practices, but at the same time, uh, however you can change it up to have fun, I think you need to do it. Yeah, Sean, I've always thought about going to the next level. It would have to be, at this point in my life, it would have to be a job that can pay me enough. And at this point in my life, I probably don't have the resume or the connections to get a job of that manner. I have been offered smaller college jobs in the past that economically weren't feasible. Once you get married and have kids, things change a little bit. So economically, smaller schools that don't pay more than I'm making now as a high school coach. They don't really make sense. But I've always wanted to coach at the next level, and the biggest reason for me is I always wanted to be involved in a situation where recruiting was legal and I could go out and find the talent that fits my school, fits my culture, and if I bring in the wrong kids, then it's on me as a recruiter. I always thought that would be intriguing. Uh, what do you feel are the advantages and disadvantages of strong side, quick side? We were always a strong side, quick side O line. I think obviously some of the disadvantages might take a little bit more time to line up, switching sides. You know, uh, I think sometimes maybe you get some tendencies built in with some of your best players that you run the ball behind on the strong side or the quick side. But I like moving them around. I like the fact that my best player didn't always have to be to the field or to the boundary based on where the ball was. We could change the formation, and if the ball was on the right hash, I could call a left formation and get my strong side over to the left. And I like the fact that when for some of our most successful years, we ran power strong only and counter weak only. And then when we taught, the strong guard, when we ran power, only had to be on the front side down blocking. And when we ran counter, he was the kick out block. And the weak side guard on power was always the pull in the wrapper. And on counter, he was always a down blocker. So I feel like it made our schemes a little bit more um, simplified for the kids and allowed us to play at a better tempo. So I think it's a good idea. I still like it to this day. Obviously, not in the NFL when you pay a guy, you got a right-handed quarterback and you pay your left tackle $80 million to protect your quarterback. I get that, but in high school, I think it's definitely doable. any meetings I try to have with parents, I try to tell them, when it comes to playing time, we're probably not going to agree. That's your child. You probably love your child to death. I have 50 children on my team, and I'm worried about the overall program and the team. So we're probably not going to agree on how good you think your kid is. I also try to explain to parents that I get hired and fired based on winning and losing. So if I'm playing the 11 kids that I'm playing on the field, I feel like they give me the best chance to win. Even if you feel like they're not the most talented, they're probably the most reliable, or maybe other kids did things during the week to keep them off the field. So, those conversations aren't always going to go well, because if there's a dad or a mom and they love their son and they think their son's the best in the world, it's going to be very hard to convince them otherwise. So you try not to have those conversations, but you let them know up front, look, my door is open to talk about grades. My door is open to talk about behavior. My door is open if you need my help. But if my door is open for schemes or playing time, we're probably not going to agree. So if you're going to come in, you better be ready to disagree, or you better be ready to not potentially get your way. Otherwise, don't come in. As an offensive coordinator, what do you stress the most every day in practice? Probably the operating procedure, how we line up, how quickly we try to line up, what formations we're in, getting lined up correctly, how we get signals from the sideline, how we signal things in from the sideline. Obviously, every day we practice with signals. So I think the operating procedure of what you do is probably the utmost important thing that you have to hit on every day in practice in an offense, that, in my opinion. I've never liked our tempo. K. Beatty, I don't think we ever play as fast as I would like to, and I think that's our fault. Um, as far as execution, I think we were good at times and bad at times. I think we had some games where we executed really well, some games where we executed really poorly. We had drives where we were really good, and drives where we were really bad. So I think execution is always something you can improve on, but tempo is something that, if you say you're a tempo team like I say we should be, that's something you need to get good at, and we just haven't been as good as I would like to be. And maybe my standards are a little bit tougher when it comes to tempo, but I think there's teams that do a way better job than we do, and I think I've got to do a better job with it. So yeah, we have several hybrid defensive players, just because of how we play, and the rules of my defense and how I teach my defense. We have hybrid safeties and hybrid backers, and so I think the more hybrid guys you find, the better off you are. But it's hard to find those kids sometimes. But our safeties have to be hybrid types, because we don't switch sides and we don't play with a strong safety and a weak safety. So they have to be able to do a lot of things. And then I expect my linebackers, to do some different things. My Mike sometimes is a hybrid D lineman in a way, because he's more of a plugger, and um, my stack backers are more hybrid backer safety types. Simply because I need them to cover a little bit more. So I think because of the personnel that offenses use, and the fact that you can't, they use personnel groups that are very multiple without making substitutions. So you can't make substitutions. So I think you need to match the multiplicity of the offense with players that can do multiple things on defense. That's just my opinion. Where are you guys at, wherever you're located with our school, or is anybody going back to school this year, or all your schools where you're at closed for the rest of the year, or is there a date that you're supposed to go back? I know that our county's talking about, I am not a check with me guy, K. Beatty. We were early in my career. I always wanted to put us in the best possible play based on a defensive look. And then I ended up finding out that we would get the look we want, call the play we want, and then somebody on the defense would annihilate it. So, like, we used to run midline at times from under center, and we would try and run midline to the three technique. So we would check it to the three technique. We played a kid that was a Florida State commit and played for the Green Bay Packers. Timmy Jernigan was his name, at Lake City, Columbia. We checked midline to him. He tackled the fullback, the quarterback, and everybody else in his path. So I found out right then and there that check with me was not the greatest system for me. And from that point on, I went full tempo, no huddle. That's just my experience. Yeah, right now we got an email saying that they're trying to go back May 4th, and where I'm at in Florida. So I have no idea if that's going to happen. I just know the more I read every day, um, the more I see all these other states closing. I don't know how we're possibly going to go back to school if everybody else is closing. One kid, that, or one teacher that gets any symptoms of corona if they open up schools. That's not going to be good for anybody. So I don't know if they're doing that just to keep people. Um, I don't know if they're doing that just to keep people involved, to keep kids involved. I know the county next to me, they had a lot of kids that were pawning their computers that they borrowed from school to do work, and they were finding local pawn shops had um, all these county computers that were getting pawned. So I don't know if they're trying to hold on and not make an announcement so that the kids stay involved. If they feel like if they make the announcement, the kids will just shut down. I don't know the logic behind it, but I just know with everybody else shutting down for the rest of the year, if we go back and if we go back and there's other places that don't go back, and somebody ends up with symptoms or gets corona, whether it be a teacher or a kid, um, I just don't know where they'll go from there. So I don't know. I'm in a position, just like as a football coach, I'm going to do what they tell me to do. I do what my admin tells me to do. I may not like it, but I'm going to do what they tell me to do. So whatever the superintendent and whatever the local government thinks, if that's what happens, that's what happens. So yeah, Carmine, New York's not good. I don't know. I would imagine they'll be okay by the fall, but uh, I don't know right now. It doesn't look great, but I would think with all the information that's out there now, I would think the fall is definitely doable. Now, as far as playing sports where kids are going to be really in contact with other kids, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if some things in the fall with contact football and football being enough of a sport that deals with staph infection and a lot of other things, and kids being in such close quarters and in contact with each other and tackling and blocking. And I wouldn't be surprised in the fall if you see some places that don't have football. So I'm interested to see, depending on where we're at when that time comes. Like, most of the most college stadiums, especially down south, they got 90 to 100,000 people, and places around the country have 80 to 90 to 100,000 people. I'm interested to see how they think they're going to possibly, play college or NFL football with people in stands, or maybe they'll play without people in the stands. I don't know what they're going to do. Hey, Rock, my buddy Rock Marcone, who came to the Play Fast Clinic from Michigan, fascinating human being, great guy, a friend that I made through uh, just doing stuff like this on YouTube and things like that, and I couldn't be prouder that he came to the clinic and that we're friends now on social media. I'll tell your wife I said hello. Also, my family says hello. Yeah, I can imagine the Detroit area, Rock. Inner cities and places that are highly populated. I can imagine it's got to be bad. I know you're maybe not involved as much anymore, Rock. But any effect? What's the military effect? What's the effect on the military, or what's the effect it's having there? Kay Beatty, that is an interesting thought, because after we put together the first Play Fast clinic here, um, and Rock is a good guy to talk to because he came to it. The first thing was I didn't know how many people we could get. I didn't know how many rooms we could sell out. I didn't know, what the turnout would be. I didn't know what the logistics were going to look like. And we ended up at this beautiful hotel in St. Augustine. We ended up with 150 clinic attendees. We ended up with over 50 rooms booked for 2 nights at a hotel that was $230 discounted each night. And now, after we pulled that off, and because of the stuff that I do with YouTube, because I have a clientele through YouTube and stuff that is kind of national across the country. My first goal when I got done with that clinic was I wanted to put one on somewhere else. Obviously, my first thought became maybe New York, because that's where my connections are. But I've had several people across the country talk about it, and it was so much work here though on our end that I don't know how I would do it remotely. Um, Obviously, I know how to market it, and I know that how to get the word out. But as far as hotels and all the work that you need to do to book it, and all the feet on the ground that you need to do in the place, I'd be really interested in looking into the logistics there, because I've had several different people ask about doing one in the Midwest or doing one out west or doing one in California. But it's interesting, Beatty, that you bring that up because we have certainly thought about it. I'm doing a Zoom thing this Thursday night with somebody. I don't know, some type of chalk war deal that I wasn't really thrilled about because I don't think those go. I don't think chalk wars go very well. Um, as far as an online clinic, Sean, I don't know if or when I'm going to do anything um, because I'd rather just kind of keep putting out YouTube videos at smaller clips and talking about um, different concepts and techniques, fundamentals, and philosophy on what I think about certain things in smaller YouTube clip. I feel like for me, that'd be great, K. Beatty. I think it's a good idea. Obviously, not knowing the status of the world, it's not a great idea. But when we came out of that clinic in January, my first thought was we had people from 13 different states there, and I think we had a guy from Arizona. So it might have been you. Was it? I don't know if it was you or not. But the first thought was we're going to do this more than once a year, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it in multiple places outside of Florida. And then I just had to take a moment to kind of sit back and think, is it possible? Um, I know it's possible to draw interest. I know it's possible with all the work that I've done on YouTube with PlayFast and social media. I know it's possible from that standpoint, but putting it all together would be tough. I think companies like Glacier and Nike have such um, a huge staff and such a huge all the different workers and all the different things that I think it would be hard for somebody small like myself to put together multiple clinics in different parts of the country. But it's definitely a goal. As I get older, and like I said, as I get older in my career, I start looking at other things to do, and doing clinics across the country would be something that I would love to do because that's kind of I've gravitated the last 6, 7 years of my life towards promoting the game of football and coaching the game of football and helping people in any way that I can. So it's something that I would really love to do. But getting back to your point, Sean, I think I'd rather keep doing smaller YouTube videos and kind of piece by piece clinicking that way, and then do these YouTube live deals where I can interact with everybody rather than do one online clinic. That's just kind of how I've thought about it a little bit. But I've been asked by several people to do different Zoom things, and I agreed to one of them that I think I'm doing this Thursday night. I don't know exactly who's running it or what's going on, but I agreed to do one this Thursday night. But I think I'm gonna, for now, unless we're like this for the next 3 months, for now I'm gonna shy away from online clinics. What I'm really looking into figuring out the podcast side of things, and then obviously now it's tough because of social distancing, but the direction I really want to go in is getting more through Zoom and some other things. I guess they would be clinics in a way, but I'm trying to get other coaches and other opinions on the site, so it's not always my opinion, and it's not always how I think about things because I think presenting different opinions and schematically, philosophically, how people think, and giving people another voice or another avenue on my channel to go down. I think that would only be the right thing to do and the good thing to do. I just got to find the right people to do it. I got to find people that I trust that can speak and present the information well, people that aren't afraid to be on camera. But the one thing I have tried to figure out through all this stuff is I've tried to learn a little bit more about Zoom and conferences and how to record and share my screen so I can do things on the Patreon site that I have. And it's been an interesting time. I really need, as you guys can tell, I need a better computer. I need a microphone. I need other things to run my podcast. But I started doing podcasts and I absolutely fell in love with it. And unfortunately, they got cut off a little bit because the person that was kind of producing them and editing them with me is a teacher at school, and he's got a new newborn, so social distancing hasn't really allowed us to do anything. So my podcast kind of got cut short, but I was really looking into developing the podcast further to interview different coaches from across the country and coaches that have big social media followings and coaches that do a good job. And for me, it would be to try and get guys from different venues and different philosophies and different schemes. So, go out and talk to air raid guys, find a wing T guy, find a flex bone guy, find a single wing guy. Go out and find a 3-4 guy and a 4-2 guy and a 4-3 guy, and try and find people that can talk about the game and different things that I don't necessarily do, because I think after a while on YouTube, it's me, it's my opinion, it's how we do things. And occasionally I go out and talk about what other people do, but I'm not big into analyzing what NFL teams do and what college teams do and breaking down. There's enough people out there that do that. I've kind of found my niche with what I do and how I do it. And now I'm trying to kind of grow my niche a little bit more, but I'm not trying to do what everybody else does. So I don't know. Long story short, Sean, I don't know if I'm going to do any online clinics. Yes, as a high school coach, I'm always I have two general middle schools that feed us. One's about an 80% feeder. The other's probably a 40% feeder. So the one that's an 80% feeder plays their home games in our stadium. So I'm always out there at those home games, making sure the field's taken care of and making sure they have what they need. And I never talk to any of those kids unless they're zoned, even though it's open enrollment now. If they live in my school zone and they're by zone or by law or by rule, they're supposed to come to our school at the end of the season, I will take those 8, 10, 12 kids and meet with them and tell them what we would like to do with them moving forward. But I don't talk to the entire team because the entire team is not zoned to me, and that's illegal. So I keep an eye on talent. I try to get a roster, and I try to get from the county the school zone. So when I'm watching games, I know what kids to look at. So if a kid is not zoned to come to me, I don't really pay attention to him. The kids that are zoned to come to me, I pay attention. But to be honest with you, Sean, the last 2 or 3 years, what I've probably done the most is I go to those games to try and figure out who else is at those games talking to those kids, trying to get them to their high school. So a lot of times I want my presence known, and I want my presence to be known there so that coaches don't think they can just come and rape and pillage all the junior high kids that are supposed to come to my school. That's really the last 2 or 3 years is what I've been doing. Sad state of affairs. I wish it was one feeder school and they all came to me, and we could do after games. We could feed them either concession stand stuff or pizza. I could talk to them after games about what they're doing. I could talk to them about what they need to do moving forward, what they need to do in school, what they need to be focused on. But without a true 100% feeder, and now with all the open enrollment stuff, it's really impossible to do that where I am. I don't know where you guys are, how your feeders work, or obviously Beatty said that that Arizona is just as bad with open enrollment and stuff like that. So I don't know how it works where you are, but I think no matter where you are, the places that have true junior high feeders or youth football feeders where all those kids go to one place, I think those places have a leg up on everybody, and I think they're probably the better programs in the country. I think you get that neighborhood feel. I think you get that sense of culture. I think you get to a point where you can develop all the things that you want to develop. I could probably do a coaching clinic at my school and it be voluntary for those coaches to attend. As far as a camp with players or whatever, it would have to be something to where they probably would have to sign some type of waiver that if they're not in my school zone, if they attended my school in ninth grade, they'd be ineligible because of contact with either me or my coaching staff. But as far as I ran the PlayFast clinic through PlayFast football, not through my high school. So anything I do as a business, I could probably do whatever I wanted. I could run a PlayFast football camp, and have insurance for the camp and have the facility rented out, and that would be a business venture that wouldn't cross paths with my high school. But if I ever did something like that, if I did a PlayFast camp, I would have my own waiver there that says if kids are out of my school zone and they attend my camp and then attend my high school, that they either they would be ineligible their ninth grade year. I would try and do something to cover my ass to make it, to where I would never do a camp to get players. If I did a camp, it would be to grow the game and um, to educate kids on the right way to play football. And I would invite at least one coach, if not the honest coach, if not the head coach, I'm sorry, I would invite the head coach from every other school in our county and say, hey, I'm putting this on through Play Fast Football. I would like you to be a part of it and coach something. And I'd like you to be there so that you can see I'm not trying to take any of your kids. I'm not trying to do this as a recruiting venture. So I would open it up to every coach in the county and all the people that I trust and the people that I think are good football coaches. And I would invite every head football coach in the county and say, this is what I'm doing. If you'd like to be here and coach, I'd love to have you. And then I would pay those guys because it's through a business end. So that's how I would do it. Yes, if the other team is more talented at offensive line, and they are going to manhandle you, uh, it is going to be very tough to win no matter what you do. You can try and move, you can try and stunt, you can try and pressure, you can try and do a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, the talent level on the offensive line and the defensive line, linebacker level, um, if that is disparaging, it's very, very hard to win those games. It's very, very difficult. I think when you look in college and the NFL, teams that are better in the trenches, they win more games, and that's when the talent is close to even. So it gets so crazy in high school where you might have 300-pound kids going up against 180-pound kids, and you got, obviously you got to do something. You got to move, you got to stem, you got to stunt, you got to pressure, you got to make it as tough on them as you possibly can. But at the end of the day, those games are very difficult to win. Yeah, I think depending on the rules that you have in your state. So, like in Florida, the rule was something along the lines that, like, it was contact with kids in their eighth grade year prior to enrolling in high school. That was illegal. But if you were in contact with kids before their eighth grade year, so if kids came to a camp their seventh grade year or something along those lines, it was okay. But their eighth grade year, if they did it and then enrolled in your school, that was considered recruiting. So that's how all the other sports function: baseball, basketball, volleyball. They all have youth teams and club teams and AAU teams, and they play year round. And then, especially like wrestling, they start these wrestling programs, and the kids start with the program when they're 5, and then the kids end up going to that high school where that guy coaches. So, um, it's like anything else. There's rules and there's loopholes, and guys that want kids to because they want to win games and they don't want to coach a neighborhood they're going to find a way to get kids. You're not changing that. So, yeah, it's a game of dudes. It's Jims and Joes, not X's and O's, and it, it's frustrating in high school. But I think you have to know that going in, and the more important part is really making sure your admin and your support staff and people around you know that going in, because if they have expectations of something that's just not possible, it's going to make it probably a tough job to be in. All right, here's my thoughts on wide zone. It's not formation dependent. We can run it out of um, we can run it out of several different formations. I don't think it's necessarily fullback dependent. Obviously, if you've got a great fullback sniffer, you're going to incorporate him. But you can boss him, you can insert him, you can zip him to the backside. I don't think it's fully dependent on what the fullback does. I think you can run it weak and strong, and I think it's a counter to itself because based on how teams fit runs, if you're running wide zone principles where you're not really trying to fully reach the edge, and if you get the edge, it's a bonus. Then the ball goes back underneath based on how the defense reacts to what you're doing. So it creates natural running lanes based on a defense's response. So, the biggest thing is being not formationally dependent, because we had some runs like buck sweep and some pin and pull stuff that became formationally dependent. We had some tendencies with the sniffer that got a little bit too too good as far as tendencies were concerned. So I think wide zone is a way to break some of those things. I think it's a counter to itself. I don't know if you can survive. I know there's some really good guys out there that survive with only wide zone. I don't know, depending on the talent level you have, I don't know if you can survive with only wide zone. Our thought was wide zone, inside zone, and then counter, OF counter. That was our thought, or it was my thought going in with what we wanted to do. So, any book or online resource recommendations to improve on understanding multi football strategies? We actually talked about this earlier, Justin. I most of the books I have are from head coaches, philosophical books on what they do, how they do it, how they approach things. I don't have a lot of schematic books on the X's and O's of football. I know there's probably a lot of good books out there for starters. Not to insult anybody's intelligence, but a book like Football for Dummies, or startup books if you're new to football that talk about terminology and rules and things like that. Um, like I said, I've said this a million times, but I'm a YouTube guy. I'm a film guy. I'm an all 22 guy. I'm a get film however you can, get film share with you from people. I like to watch it actually happen and not read it. So that's just me. But online, I think YouTube's a great source. I think Twitter is a great source for information. So there's definitely a lot out there. Yeah, there's no way to avoid that, Beatty. It's think of the guys that how much time guys in college put in, and then when you go play Alabama, Clemson, or LSU, or Oklahoma, or Florida back in the day, Florida State back in the day, Miami back in the day, the blue bloods were always the blue bloods, and guys put in a lot of time and a lot of schemes, but it never shows up. So, that's just something you got to deal with. Hey, hi. You want to say hello? You want to say hello to the YouTube world? What do you want? Good. Which hat is mine?
No, I haven't made yours yet.
Okay.
But these are half of the cat ones. See?
Okay,
I
so
made birthday hats for the cats.
we have two cats that have birthdays coming up, and my daughter made birthday hats. So there's all the birthday hats.
Look how cute his is.
There's the birthday boy's hat.
Look, these are for Smokey and Skippy because they're gay. Sorry.
Oh,
I didn't name it.
seventh grade daughter, unbelievable. You're welcome, Justin. I hope that helps you. Like I said, I like Nike Coach of the Year manuals because you get several things from different coaches. I like it because you get schematics, you get techniques, you get fundamentals. But you probably have your own learning style, and you understand how you learn. Yeah. Yeah, this is an interesting YouTube channel. My most recent videos have been done in front of a Just Dance mirror in a room where my kids have a dance mirror built, and also this is an interesting channel. But you've got to do things that are conducive to how you learn. If you're a reader and that's how you learn information, then try and get playbooks that have PDF files, or that are PDF files. Try and get books where you can see things in front of you. If you're more of a learner by seeing it done, like me, then I need to see video. I want to see video. And then obviously, if there's something that I really want to know about, I got to find out how they're teaching it, the terminology they're using, the adjustments, and the things they're trying to do. But I can usually figure out a lot of that if I watch enough of it. So I just watch anything I'm interested in. I watch it as much as I can, and then I put my own spin on it. So high school quarterback in Orlando. As a coach, how do you recommend I remind my coaches to send film or playbooks, etc.? In a respectful way, you just got to ask your coaches, head coach, is there anything on film I can study? Do you have anything in huddle I can study? And then hopefully your coaches will be honest with you. I'm honest with all my kids. If they ask me about a playbook in huddle, I tell them I don't have one, and I don't put one up on huddle because I don't know, I don't know who they're with. I don't know who they talk to. And like I said, I lost a bunch of players to another school. And if you have a playbook out there that's printable, they take that with them. So I really don't do enough of that. But as far as I know, my kids will hit me up during the season. If I hadn't exchanged a film or shared a film, I know I get messages from my kids all the time to say, hey, Coach, you got any film yet? Is the new film up? Do we have any more film on the opponent? Have you posted anything? So, there's a way to go about it respectfully. And I think your coaches will appreciate the fact that you want film and you want playbook stuff. But, ask in a way that maybe the coaches feel like it's going to benefit them too. Just, instead of asking for your own interest, go and say, hey, coach, I really want to know what we're going against this week, or I really want to have a better understanding of what I need to do. Is there anything you have that can help me with that? And, if you approach it that way, you'll usually get good results. Yeah, I think Alexander's right. I think, don't be afraid to go in there and ask. And I think some of your coaches are going to like that. If they don't like it, then might be in the wrong business. Yeah, I haven't read that one yet, Rock. I have the other one. I actually got this from Finding the Winning Edge, this Bill Walsh book. I got this from I did an article for somebody, or I wrote something for somebody. It was USA Football. They did a coaching notes from 2018 or something like that, and I did that, and I think they sent me a copy of this book. Something I did for somebody, and I got a copy of this book, and I haven't read it fully yet, but that's one for me. But you can see, like for me, just so you know, I never lie, but like here's my 2003 Coach of the Year Nike manual. This thing has been run through a million times. It's been through the ringer and back, but that's something for me that I would go to because it's got, when I open it up, all right, even though it's 2003, I get it, but I've got all these different contents. So, when I open it up right away, it's Tommy Bowden from Clemson, hurry up, no huddle, secondary coverage and zone dogs from Kentucky, USC base under defense. So for me and the things that I like to study, I can get all these different things and study them and look at them. And if I like it, if I don't have to look at it or read it. But so I go with things like that, or like this 2017 USA Football high school coaching notes. This was a good one, and shameless plug, I don't make any money off it or not, if you buy it or not, but defending RPOs on page 205 is a Coach McPherson deal. So I wrote an article in this. There's my defending RPOs by Thomas McPherson. So, but things like this are good reads for me simply because it's multiple. I get other coaches' perspectives. I get perspectives on different schemes. So I'm into things like that. Personally, but again, like I said, I have a lot of books, that I need to read, and Gruden's book and Mike Leach's book, and it's all, it's all good stuff for me. So that's just me, but everybody to each his own. I think you gotta understand what's good for you. 49ers fan. I was never a 49ers fan, but I was a huge Jerry Rice fan. I loved Roger Craig. So yeah, it's weird to say that you were, unless you know the guy or you are the guy, or it's weird to say that you were a fan until Jeff Garcia was done. That's never heard a 49ers fan say that before. Um, I think that the website for Nike Coach of the Year is probably Nike COY, or let me see if I can find it on my phone. I believe it would be Nike Coach of the Year clinic, and then it's going to list where all the clinics are. Nike COY football.net, Nike Coach of the Year clinic publications. So you got the 2019 Coach of the Year clinics with Ed Orgeron on it, and then probably you can go back and buy every year. So I think if you go to Nike Coach of the Year, I think you can find it there. Yeah, my buddy just said his flight to New York this summer got canceled, and now they're canceling flights into September. It's crazy to think that we might be going back to school, but they won't even let people fly. Coach, how involved are you in your team's off-season strength and conditioning workouts? I'm curious. I am the weightlifting coach for the weightlifting team, so I'm obviously very involved there. I have 5 periods of weight training that my probably 70% of my team is in, so obviously I'm very involved there. So I've got 2 young guys that I like, and that I take their opinion because they're weight room guys. So I take their opinion and try to. I'm always looking for other opinions or ways to. Like over the summer, my plan was, if I had some other coaches around, I was going to let my other coaches run the strength program just so our kids got something different and we added a new spice or a new flavor to what I do. I think you've got to, in order to keep it fun and interesting for the kids, you got to change it up a little bit. So yeah, I'm pretty involved in it, but don't mind giving it up either. Palms coverage versus flood levels routes from a 21 open set. We have had trouble versus the intermediate. Yeah, that's always going to be a problem in palms. The intermediate out, if one goes vertical and two is not to the flat, at which point the corner would come off. If the corner stays on one, and now either safety's got to play two, or your outside backer, or your apex safety, whoever that is, has to try and get underneath that intermediate route to make it a tougher throw. If it's a flood concept, you got to make sure that that guy drops to cover the deeper out, or at least be in that window, and he doesn't run up to play the flat route. Make them throw the flat route and rally down to cover it. But you got to have coverage adjustments, because if you're going to get, if you got a coverage that's getting beat by something, you have to have an alternate or an adjustment. So we have a bunch of man free, and then some spot drop 3 deep stuff, and then some quarter stuff that is a little bit better to some of that stuff. Yeah, my freshmen work out with us. We take our incoming 8th graders in the spring, and we start teaching them all the Olympic lifts. So we teach them how to squat. We teach them how to power clean. We teach them how to deadlift the right way. Then we teach them how to bench. We teach them basically the core lifts that we're going to do. And we start with PVC pipes and no weights on the bar and everything else. And then about the 3rd or 4th week, some of those kids can graduate up to using weights. Some of them can't. They're still using PVC pipes. But our freshmen coming in, especially when they're in 9th grade, they will definitely lift with us. Carmine, I think we need to do more with flexibility. I don't think we've done as good of a job in our strength training phase. Need to incorporate more flexibility into that. We are so limited on time with the amount of time I see my kids in that my kids, I have 50-minute gym periods, and by the time they change out, by the time they get into the clothes they need and get back into the clothes, I only have about 38 minutes with them. Our field house is a little bit removed from the rest of the campus, so it's about a 2-minute walk. So I only have about 38 minutes with them. So the strength training part becomes so cramped that that we don't do a really good job with the flexibility stuff. I probably need to take 1 day a week and do some flexibility work. But it's a great point you bring up, Carmine, but I am the wrong guy to ask, because I would tell you right now that our flexibility program is not very good. I know in the summer we do a lot of work on it, and I know we do a lot of sprint mechanic work and a lot of hurl work and a lot of gait mobility work. But I don't think we do. I don't think I do a good enough job with it. Oh yeah, appreciate it, Antoine. And anything you need, if you're an up and coming coach, any videos, I mean, anything you need. If you ever have a topic or something you want on a video, just shoot me a message or comment on a video, and I'll see what I can do. If I know anything about it, I'll do it. But I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you following the channel, and all you guys that are on here probably subscribed to the channel already. That's probably how you know we were doing YouTube Live. But just little things like that with subscribing and turning your notifications on and making sure you know every time I do something, and interact with the videos when you want to know something. I think if there's anybody on this site that's on this YouTube Live right now, if they've ever responded to something, I could probably 95% guarantee that I've responded back. I even respond back to things that are negative. Guys that have different opinions or ask why I would do it a certain way, I even respond back to them. So interacting with the videos is the best way. Asking questions if I can answer them, and then asking. I've done a couple videos that have been subscriber-based videos where somebody's asked me a question, and I do. When you're creating content on a YouTube channel, especially in the game of football, you're always looking for ways to create new content anyway. So when subscribers or guys send me a question and say, "Coach, can you do a video on this?" If I can do it and I can do it effectively, then what's going to happen is I'm going to do a video on it, because it helps me create content. So I like having opinions from subscribers, and I like having opinions from coaches. So and I try to, especially on Twitter and everywhere else, I try to respond. And guys that are on here, I knew Rock would, if Rock was still here, I knew he'd say, because it's one of the things that I think people appreciate is you interact with them and you try to respond. And you got to remember, sometimes I don't see all the messages. Sometimes they come up either in spam or the way YouTube filters things. I don't always see them, but if I see them, you can be pretty sure that I'm going to respond. And if you ask about a video that I can do and do justice, I'm going to do it. And if I can't do it, I'll probably ask people's opinions, and then I'll give my input on the advice I got. So somebody asked me one time to do a wing tee video, and I really didn't know the ins and outs of the wing tee. So I did a video on why people run the wing tee, and I went out and asked all the people that I thought were great wing tee guys I asked their opinion, and then I formulated a list of things, and I did a video that way because I really couldn't speak about the ins and outs of the wing tee. So somebody wanted that video, and I didn't want to disappoint them, so I did the video, and I just did some research on why guys use the wing tee and what they like about it, and I did the video that way. So as a content creator, it's always good to have questions and have people give their input on what you want. And then, I don't know all of, I don't know 100% O'Malley. Sorry, Coach O'Malley. What are your in-season conditioning thoughts? How often? I think a lot of our in-season conditioning coach comes from the tempo at which we practice. And if we're doing a great job with the tempo at which we practice, then afterwards the running is not as intense. We'll run half gassers, we'll run 20s, 40s, 60s, things along those lines. But if you're practicing the right way and your summer workouts were good, I don't think the conditioning has to be as intense. And that's also part of the purpose of being a no huddle team is you're trying to condition while you practice and get your kids used to a tempo that maybe other schools aren't used to. So I think we need to do a good job in practice and keep our kids moving and keep the tempo up. And then when we go afterwards, we'll run 2 or 3 half gassers or 4 half gassers, or we'll run a couple 20s, 40s, 60s. But it's nothing really crazy. It's never been anything crazy. I'm not a firm believer into running kids into ground. I'm not a firm believer in, depending on the numbers we have, I'm not really a firm believer in running kids to chase them off the team. I'd rather spend 2 hours on the field coaching techniques and fundamentals. Big pet peeve of mine, and this is a huge, huge pet peeve. I don't like stopping practice to condition or run. Um, unless it's something behavior wise, if there was a fight or something stolen in the locker room. If it's a football related deal, I don't like stopping practice to run. Um, if we're doing a tackling drill and we can't tackle, doing 50 up downs is not going to make us better tacklers. Um, Maybe if the effort in the drill isn't what you want and you grab their attention as an attention getter, but as a punishment for not doing assignments, I cannot stand when coaches stop practice to run kids, do grass drills, up downs, because if I can't block and you make me do up downs, you'd be better off spending 10 minutes teaching me how to block than spending 10 minutes of me doing up downs. Because when I'm done doing up downs, I still can't block. So that's a huge, huge pet peeve of mine. I don't know if that helps Shanny or not, but and I could never stand playing for coaches that did that. It drove me nuts as a player. When I was younger and I was in shape, I could do up downs till I'm blue in the face. You're not helping me catch the ball. You're not helping me block. You're not helping me tackle. All you're doing, if anything, is making me not enjoy what's going on. So, as an attention getter, yes. As a response to discipline, yes. As a coaching deal, absolutely not. I never use punishment to try and correct a technique or a fundamental. I just think it's bad business. Now, there's probably some guys out there that do it and probably win more games than I do, but just bad business. I think Brady will be good. If they can keep him on his feet, he'll be good. If they can put some people around him that can win one-on-ones, they'll be good. I still think he's got enough in the tank. I think he can make most of the throws, if not all the throws that he needs to make. He's smart enough to know how to manipulate the pocket and get rid of the football, but they got to keep people, they got to keep people off him and keep him upright. If he starts getting hit and knocked around a bunch and it's not what he thought it was, I don't think you'll see him that long. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think he wants to prove that he's the best quarterback to ever play. There's probably not much debate about that, but I think he wants to prove it outside of Belichick and Josh McDaniel is what I think. But I don't want to speak for him. But that's just me as me being a competitor and knowing how competitors think. I think there's a lot of people that would agree that there's probably a side to him that wants to get away from the Patriots and Belichick and McDaniel and say that it was every bit as much of Tom Brady as it was everybody else. That's just my opinion, and I hope he does well. I don't want to see the guy fail. He's been great for the game of football. He's obviously he's got some things. There's some things he's done, Deflate Gate and some other things that obviously nobody's perfect. But I think he's a pretty good ambassador for the game of football. I think he's a pretty good ambassador for staying with one team for 18, 20 years or whatever the heck it was. And I think he's a pretty great ambassador of longevity and how to take care of yourself and play a position that you can endure longevity. So, I mean, I don't wish any ill will towards Brady at all. All right, guys, it's been one of our best ones so far, running over 2 hours and 10 minutes and still over 30 people here. So I appreciate it. If there's any, I'll hang for about another 5 minutes. If there's any other questions that you want answered tonight, so be it. Remember, on Twitter at Coach Mac 8740, you can always follow me and hit me up and send me a direct message. I'll respond to everybody. Instagram at Coach Mac 8740. I'm more of a Twitter guy than an Instagram guy, but if you hit me up on any of those platforms, as long as I know who you are, I will definitely follow back. And if you message me and I know who you are, I will 100% follow back or respond back. If you do follow me on any of those platforms and you just send me a message and say, hey, coach, I was on the YouTube live the other night, and then I will certainly respond because I know that you were here. But thank you, Carmine. Stay safe out there. But if there's any other questions that you want to, thanks for your time, Sean. I appreciate it. Stay safe in South Carolina. You a Clemson fan or a Gamecock or neither? I love me some Will Muschamp. Thank you, Timothy. I appreciate it. Oh, oof. Not much I can say about that one. Not the biggest fan of FSU football, but great program back in the day. I don't root against them. I'm not a Gator fan, so I don't root. I don't root against FSU, but it's just not a lot. I think Bobby Bowden was great. My Twitter is Coach Mac 8740, Rick. So it's Coach Mac MAC 8740. Oh, thank you, Alexander. I'm sure there's people out there that would disagree, but yeah, Rock, let me know. Update me on anything that's going on that you need to update me on, and hope everybody around you is safe. Hope the family's safe, and update me. Let me know, and then we'll talk later this week. There's probably people that disagree with you, Alexander, but I certainly appreciate your opinion. Just trying to provide the best content out there. I do like Mike Norvell, Sean, by the way. I thought the other hire was absolutely asinine. That was just me personally. And I was never a big Jimbo Fisher fan, so I didn't like that one either. But I really liked the Mike Norvell deal. I really liked the Kendall Browse deal when he was there, but as far as head coaching, I really liked the Mike Norvell deal, and it would not bother me one bit if he had success and they did some things. I'm an Alabama fan, so FSU is not going to bother me one bit. I think at this point, change is good, and that program obviously, but I think anywhere change. When you're not having a success you want, or success that you once had with a real blue blood like FSU, you've got to change. And I think sometimes that's how you look at programs like Michigan and show six me. Yeah, I'll follow that. I think about a school like Michigan and how long they've chased Michigan men and how they've treated non-Michigan men. I think when you're a blue blood and you're trying to win football games, I think you need to do what's best for your football program. And Nick Saban's not an Alabama guy. Dabo Swinney wasn't a Clemson guy. There's a lot of great stories that work out that way. And Ed Orgeron being a Louisiana guy and all his shtick and gimmick and the way he talks and all that stuff. Yeah, that's a great story, but not all stories work out that way. So I think the programs that want to win understand that winning is important, and we don't need to find quote unquote our guy, because most of the time what you'll find for that amount of money, when those guys get there, they become those guys real quick. So they buy into tradition, they buy into culture, and they're all about it real quick, and they're going to promote that program. When you're making $3-4 million a year, it's real easy to become a Seminole. It's real easy to become a Gator or to become a Crimson Tide or a Tiger. And I think that the best programs out there find ways to go out and find the best dudes to coach the team and not worry about who the hell they are or where they come from. And to me, Michigan comes to mind right away, 100%. Always looking for Michigan men, and they've had some success with Michigan men. But at the same time, I don't think that's a way to constantly go about your business. The best coach out there that's had success doing things a certain way that fits you is the best coach out there. Just because he doesn't have your name on his diploma. I don't think that's a great way to go about business. That's just my opinion. But I appreciate all you guys. Look, I don't know. It might be. I don't know if it's going to be Thursday because I have to do the chalk war deal, whatever I'm doing. But I don't. I think at some point this week I'm going to get on here with GameStrat. So if you don't know who GameStrat is a sideline replay system that we use at my high school. They're somebody that I've been working with on this YouTube channel with Play Fast Football, and they came to our Play Fast clinic, and um, so I'm going to do a Zoom and try to do a YouTube live through Zoom. Um, and once we figure out all the technical production stuff, I'm going to get him on here, and we're going to talk about sideline replay. We're going to talk about their company. Going to try and get coaches on here to ask them questions, and then we're going to try and have some type of giveaway or some type of thing through GameStrat. I can't do multiple giveaways with PlayFast because the hats that I have are usually pre-production and only so many. The shirts, that I might have had made were pre-production and only so many because for me, it's very hard for me to make uh, any profit off of t-shirt shipping from my house. So um, I know that we would attract more people to YouTube Live if I said that we were giving away a PlayFast hat or a PlayFast shirt, or I just don't have my hands on that stuff. I'm trying to find ways. There have been so many people that have been interested. Like on my YouTube channel, you can go. There's a company called Teespring that works with YouTube where I have a couple items up: a hoodie, a shirt. Uh, I think in the future I might have socks or leggings or things that are up. But I've been working with some different companies to talk about possibly making a store that would be open 2 weekends a month where people could purchase PlayFast items that they wanted, and those items could be shipped to them. And then the store would close every other weekend, and it would only be open for the weekend. So it's just not feasible for me to make to have hats and shirts that I ship to people because by the time I have to pay for shipping, I have to charge the people an arm and a leg, and then it's not worth it to charge somebody $35 for a hat when it's a $20 hat, but I need $15 for shipping. So but GameStrat, I talked to the guy at GameStrat and I told him, look, if you want to get more people involved, I think you need to do something. So they're trying to figure out a way to give maybe some type of discount to their sideline replay system if you attend or if you click on their link. We're trying to figure out a way to do something that's a giveaway or something uh, something that draws more people. Sean, I don't know because I got something else going on Thursday night that I have to do this chalk war Zoom clinic deal. But I think I talked to the guy from GameStrat today, Tunch. He lives in Canada. Great guy, great dude. Um, and I think we're going to try and work on the logistics and maybe test it out uh, tomorrow, and then maybe we'll jump on. I didn't want to get on Friday or Saturday because that's normally not good, but with the way the world is right now, I don't think Friday or Saturday is really any different than Wednesday or Thursday, in my opinion. I know in my life it hasn't been. I don't even know. Um, I don't even know. Sometimes when I wake up, I forget what day it is. I got to remember if trash goes out or if recycling goes out because the days have all kind of blended together because it's the same routine every day. It's like I've seen all the different memes. It's like Groundhog Day every day. You wake up and the clock says 4 o'clock. It's Groundhog Day. I mean, it's been like that every day. So I told Tunch that normally weekends probably wouldn't be good for YouTube Live because people are doing different things and maybe things with their family. But Friday or Saturday this week might be an option. But I will definitely, when I find out, I will post it, or I will post it somewhere on YouTube to give you a heads up. I will try and set it up to where you get an advance. If you have my notifications turned on, you'll know in advance when we're going live, and then I'll try and put it out on social media platforms as well. And I'll try and promote it through GameStrat and their social media stuff, so we get I want to get as many people as possible for GameStrat. It's a good company. I like it. I like the sideline replay system. I like helping companies that um, don't have a monopoly on everything. So, when we deal with Huddle, obviously with video editing and stuff, but when you deal with Huddle has exclusives with Glacier and other companies can't get in. And these were guys out of Canada. They were younger guys and they were a startup company. And I started marketing for them and using their product. And I love the product. And I just like helping those guys out because I think there's a lot of products out there that are really good products that nobody ever finds out about just because, there's companies that have per se, a monopoly uh, on on the business side of things. And when I did my PlayFast clinic, I actually used vendors that were PlayFast customers with me that I've been working with for the last year, but I made it exclusive to where I didn't invite any other vendors that were competing with them. So GameStrack got to my clinic, and they're the only sideline replay system there because they're not allowed to go to Glazers because of Huddle. And I had a guy with a coach from Texas, Coach Sauer, that's got an app called DC1, Defense Coordinator One. He was there, and then Just Play Football was there as our digital software, and then Dome Hats, my hat company, was there, and then Baker Sporting Goods, who's locally who I use for my all my apparel and stuff like that, and then Score Fundraising, which is the fundraising group that I use. And then what I did was I made it exclusive to all them. I didn't, even though it might have cost me money, I didn't go out and get other vendors that would compete with them because they were PlayFast customers and we've been working together. So I thought a YouTube live during this time period, or a Zoom or a YouTube live with GameStrat would be great. Get some people involved. If you never heard of them, if you don't know who they are, they can pitch their product, they can pitch their website, and we can just talk about the business side of things. I thought that would be a little bit different than just getting on here and talking X and O's every day. So I appreciate everything you guys do. Jack, my quarantine has been, it's been fine. The only time I leave the house is to go to local golf courses that are still open, and those golf courses have all kind of limitations on what you can do. You're never one person in a cart, no rakes, no stuff in bunkers, no coolers, no cups. Only one person in the pro shop at a time. If you're going to order food, you got to stand. Only one person in there at a time, and they have boxes delegated where you can stand and whatnot. So as long as golf courses are still deemed essential and open, that's pretty much the only time. I left the house to go to the post office today, but other than that, just doing what everybody else is doing, trying to stay inside as much as possible. Trying to wash and disinfect as much as possible. And for the first time in my life, when I went to the post office today, I carried paper towels with me to open doors and do things like that. I've never been one to do that. I've never been a germaphobe in my life, but during this time, you have to. I have kids, and so you got to worry about things like that. So, but other than that, the quarantine's been going okay. Just cabin fever, driving yourself nuts, trying to do different things, and having kids in the house and having them doing their online schooling. And my wife's a kindergarten teacher, so she's doing online stuff. So after a while, there's only so much, and surrounded by the same walls every day that you can do. So hope it's been good for you. I hope you're doing your schoolwork. I hope you're safe where you are. I hope there are some things that you can do if you can get out and exercise, ride your bike, or do some different things that just so you can stay kind of mentally healthy. I hope you're enjoying those things. So as always, guys, I appreciate everything you do for me. If you're not already subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on, interact with videos, do all the things that YouTube tells you to do. Thumbs up, thumbs down if you like or don't like something. And again, follow me on Twitter, Coach Mac 8740, Instagram, Coach Mac 8740. Thanks for everything you guys do. You won't play well until you play fast. God bless to you as well, Jack. Everybody stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time.